According to the ancient customs of the Kingdom of Nox, every heir to the throne must pass a test called the Selection of Noble Maidens. This selection is open to unmarried girls of noble birth who have reached the age of 14. Each family has the right to nominate one candidate for the title of princess. The Garden of Noble Maidens opens its doors as soon as the crown prince turns 20 years old. On that day, invitations sealed with the red raven symbol, the royal family's coat of arms, are sent out across the country, urging girls to come to the capital. Now the main character is holding an envelope with a seal in her hands and wondering what this invitation looks like. She is happy and dreams of how wonderful it would be to see the capital, because before she had never even imagined what it looked like and how interesting it could be. The girl is sure that in any case, it will be more exciting there than at home, because the capital has so many delicious desserts and exquisite dishes. She dreams of new dresses and hopes to meet someone her own age to be friends with. The future princess, in her opinion, has already been chosen a long time ago anyway, so she's going to just enjoy this adventure. And yet she is curious who will turn out to be the chosen one, a lady from a noble family, perhaps refined and respected, or perhaps it will be a popular and self-confident lady, or a modest but noble girl with grace in every movement. The young lady is convinced that one must be beautiful and well-mannered to deserve this title. She realizes with a smile that this definitely isn't her thing, and is happy to at least have the chance to travel for free. A week later, someone approaches Steele. He's reminded that it's time to demonstrate his telekinetic abilities. Since no one can see him, he should at least carry out his orders. The bird replies that everything is clear and promises to carry out the order. At that moment, the dark-haired lady approaches the small town. She notes that the place is quiet and almost deserted, then approaches two men standing by the road. After apologizing, the girl asks where she can find Viscount Arden's estate. One of the men is surprised, asking if she is talking about the place where the old man lives, who constantly reads his books. If we are talking about him, then it is that same 3-story building on the top of the hill, he adds, asking if she is a foreigner. The second one notices that the girl looks almost like their daughter and says that she is marrying the crown prince and is friends with an exquisite lady. The heroine watches the men laugh, thanks them for the tip, and continues on her way to the estate. Coming closer, she looks at the building with distrust, wondering if this could really be the Viscount's property. It looks more like a simple hut, but since the goal is to hand over an invitation, everything must be done properly and without making any mistakes. The girl thinks about the cold, wraps herself in a cape, and tries to warm her hands, then decisively knocks on the door. A voice comes from inside, something like, "I'm already coming." And the brunette wonders if this is really the house of a noble family. A young man opens the door. Seeing her, he asks, perplexed, who it is and what brought the stranger here. The lady announces that she has brought news for the Viscount, and silently orders Steele to begin acting. A bird flew past the young man, and after that he smiled and noted that perhaps he was right. It really was piercingly cold outside. He politely invited them inside. The girl asked if they could talk right now, and the young man replied that he would immediately take her to the owner of the house. When they entered the living room, the young man invited her to sit down, noting that the Viscount would soon arrive. The girl looked around and recalled rumors that their family was going through hard times. It seemed to be true. There were no servants in sight, and the furniture looked worn and old. At that moment, the Viscount turned to his servant, wanting to know who had arrived. He also addressed the young lady, asking what brought her to their house. The girl bowed modestly. She introduced herself as Rose Larrare and expressed her pleasure at meeting her. The man, hearing her last name, tried to recall where he had heard of it. His wife noted that the Larrare family was known as martial artists and respected at court. The main character thought, remembering what she had already heard about this family, especially about the girl who had recently reached marriageable age. The young lady clarified that Iris Larrare was her half-sister, as their mothers were from different classes. Her own mother had been a commoner. After that, she asked permission to tell her story. She settled down more comfortably and began by growing up under the care of her mother, but after her death, she was left completely alone. The girl then went to look for her father, otherwise she would have to sell herself in order to survive at such a young age. After much debate and humiliation, she was finally recognized as an illegitimate child. And this was only possible thanks to the inheritance left by her mother. However, the family estate turned into a prison for her. She felt like a disgrace to the Duke's family, a stain that they tried to hide. One day, she accidentally overheard a conversation between her father and the butler. The man was saying that the girl would turn 19 this year. She has quite an attractive face, so the butler decides that he can sell her profitably, even as a mistress. The main character looks at the stranger in confusion, and she calmly says that she has finally realized that her life no longer belongs to herself. She sees the only way before her, and, gathering her courage, asks them to accept her into the family. Everyone present freezes in surprise, and then looks at each other in fear, not believing what they hear. The head of the family tries to say something, but the brunette quickly apologizes, admitting that she is acting too impudently, since they have just met. She adds that she will do everything possible to avoid dishonoring the Viscount's honor. The protagonist then turns her gaze to Madame Rose, and he asks what makes her go to such extremes, after which she calmly answers. She says her goal is to become crown princess. The young lady is stunned by these words, and at the same moment, the girl mentally commands her bird to act. The bird quickly flies past the main character's parents, and they only exchange glances, unable to understand what is happening. Meanwhile, the brunette opens a suitcase filled to the brim with money and declares that she is ready to buy the right to the throne for the Arden family. Sometime later, the young lady stands at the window, looking at the apple tree, and notices that this year the harvest is especially rich. Suddenly she sees something like a weed growing around a tree and wonders what it could be. The green creature continues to wrap itself around the trunk until it squeezes one of the apples so hard that it cracks. The girl screams and wakes up abruptly, realizing it was all just a dream. She goes to the window to make sure the tree is okay. Realizing that the vision was just a nightmare, she feels uneasy. Her heart tells her that this is not a good sign. She can't get this dream out of her head, and, returning to the estate, remembers that 2 weeks have already passed since Rose's arrival. The mother turns to Rose with a smile, admiring her beauty, and asking if she is comfortable living in their house, if she is experiencing any inconvenience. Rosa replies that she's perfectly happy with everything. The protagonist notices how the family has changed. Now all her parents, thoughts, and attention are focused solely on Rosa. She admits that, at first, she felt awkward, as everything around her seemed foreign, but now she feels at ease. With her gentleness and charming appearance, the new adopted daughter has captivated the hearts of the entire family. Mark has been acting strange lately, as if it weren't him anymore. He carefully places the tea on the table. He notices that this is exactly the variety the young lady mentioned this morning. The girl thanks him. She adds that she really missed this tea since she used to drink it often at the estate, but still apologizes for imposing her tastes on them. After this, everyone laughs, and the heroine realizes that her family has become like strangers. Even if they had enough funds for a couple more years, they would still be too attached to her. Then the girl turns to Mark and asks if he could pour her a cup of tea. The young man is surprised and says that Ms. Apple apparently doesn't drink black tea because of its bitterness. The girl quickly replies that she does drink it sometimes, realizing that he's being too free. And isn't he taking things a bit too far? But Mark pours the lady tea anyway. Meanwhile, the heroine's mother asks Mark to bring another warm blanket so that Rose doesn't catch a cold. He agrees. After this, Apple turns to her mother and says that she is having a hard time falling asleep, and the wind has gotten stronger. The woman replies with a soft smile that her poor daughter must be very tired. She admits it's inconvenient, as they had to convert the attic into a living room. He apologizes for the inconvenience, and the brunette notes that she has difficulty falling asleep if someone is nearby. The main character sighs heavily, wondering if all noble young ladies are like this. After all, what's wrong with both of them being girls? Rose says it's cold in the attic, but at least the view opens right onto the roof. She enthusiastically notes that the entire starry sky can be seen from there, and that every night one can fall asleep to its glow. It sounds romantic, and the family is shocked by such words. But the heroine feels disgust. She claims that she doesn't care how romantic it is, because it's just cold there. The brunette replies that there is no need to change rooms, she just doesn't tolerate the cold well. And before arriving at the Larer estate, she lived in the attic with only one blanket. But every day there brought her joy, because she had a place where she could rest. Apple looks at her in shock, and her mother asks if her daughter is being too stern. She reminds us that Rose has come a long way just to find a roof over her head. Mark supports his mother, saying that the lady is absolutely right, and if he were in Apple's place, he would offer Rose his room. The brunette shyly remarks that they are exaggerating too much, because everything is fine anyway. She adds that it's bad enough that she came here without an invitation, and that in itself is impudent. After that, everyone falls silent. But Rosa is the first to break the silence and tells her sister that if she wants, they can switch rooms. However, looking at her mother and Rose, the girl realizes that both are clearly on the brunette's side. However, she reminds herself that she is also the mistress of this house. Rose looks at her calmly and asks what Apple will say, since no one seems to be taking her side. She thinks they've really gone too far. The young lady gets up and says that everything is fine, she just needs another blanket, and then leaves. The brunette watches her coldly. The heroine climbs up to the attic and wonders with irritation if all noble girls are the same. She starts sweeping the floor even harder, muttering, "Can this really be true?" Then she remembers Rose. Her fragility, elegance, and grace are striking. Even her posture reveals her upbringing. The girl says this with warmth, and unexpectedly admits to herself that she finds Rose sweet. And yet, there were no problems between them before, but now, if the family treats her like a nobody, what then? The young lady screams, convincing herself that Rose is just an adopted child and will soon leave for the capital. This means that everything will return to its place, and life will become the same again. Now the heroine clearly understands that she must control herself and not let anger take over, even if the presence of this girl unsettles her. But Apple can't take it anymore, and becomes irritated again, screaming in frustration. Everything around her seems unbearable. And just at that moment, someone else appears in the attic. This someone notices that the sister clearly lacks nobility, since she screams and waves a broom like a simple servant. The heroine, stunned by her appearance, asks when she managed to get up here, and hears in response that from the very moment she was called the receptionist. Then Apple realizes she's in an awkward position, and cautiously asks what brought Mrs. Rose to the cold, dusty attic. She replies that they can just call her Rose. After all, even if it's only for a short time, they're still family. Apple quietly repeats the word family, as if tasting it, and agrees. Meanwhile, the brunette calmly announces that the day of her departure has been set. The day after tomorrow morning, at exactly 5 o'clock, she must leave by train towards St. Walprout. The main character congratulates the girl and wishes her to certainly achieve her goal, but Rose suddenly calls her sister, which makes Apple involuntarily flinch and ask in disbelief if she wants to say something. The brunette calmly asks if she would like to go with her to the royal palace. Apple freezes, not believing her ears, and asks why she needs her at all, to which the brunette calmly answers. She knows very well what the selection criteria are for the title of crown princess and what is necessary for admission to the palace. It is necessary to have a royal invitation and a letter of recommendation signed by the head of the family, as well as at least 3 outfits worthy of a ball and a maid of noble birth who knows etiquette. Therefore, the brunette, with a slight smile, turns to her beloved sister with a request to go with her to the palace as her servant. The young lady is speechless, barely having to ask if she will have to become a servant, but the brunette assures that the Luers promise to provide her with a servant, albeit of dubious origin. They even found a candidate. Apple can't believe how such a cold person can exist in a girl with an angelic face. Rose adds that she wanted to choose someone from their household, but what does it look like? A noble family, and not a single real servant. And their only servant has hardly read a single book in his entire life. Apple is perplexed as to why Rose says such things, and what motivates her. The brunette calmly asks if her sister thinks she will even have a chance of getting to the capital if she stays here. But if he decides to go with her, he will be able to see the prince himself, whose face is hidden from ordinary people, and perhaps even His Highness. In any case, all responsibilities will be taken on by others, and Apple will only be left to help and be there. The main character can't take it anymore and says she's not a servant, indignantly asking if Rose really looks down on her just because she caught her with a broom. To which Rose calmly replies, "Is she really humiliating a servant? After all, every servant at the palace is a noblewoman, like both of them, and can participate in the selection if they so desire. And if Apple arrives at the palace alone, there's a chance she simply won't be accepted. But if Rose becomes a princess, then a completely different life will begin for Apple, her servant." However, Apple abruptly demands that she leave the room and swears that she will not tell anything to either her mother or father. Rose just smiles and says that Apple will still go with her. The heroine is furious. She doesn't understand what this girl is doing. The next day, everything seems even harder. The young lady returns to her room, falls on her bed and cries silently, unable to contain her emotions. She recalls her father telling her that regardless of her feelings, Rosa was welcomed into their family, and that his daughter's refusal to listen to the head of the family was shameful. Her father then bitterly asked her what she was making of him. Now Apple hears a cautious knock on the door. It's her mother, quietly asking if she can come in. When the woman entered the room, the young lady asked if they hadn't managed to find anyone who would agree to become Rose's maid. The woman replied that the girl had no other family but them, and the thought of going to the palace alone made her anxious. She added that the young lady would not become an ordinary servant, because her main duty was to protect her mistress and be of one heart with her. Sometimes Rose can be hot-tempered and misunderstand what is happening, but this will become an important life lesson for the girl. The main character noted that this was not necessary, but the woman replied that everything was correct and she knew why she was destined to go. Apple then heard that she needed to realize something important and asked what it was. The woman said it was a truth that must not be forgotten. This truth must remain forever in their memory. The girl closed her eyes and promised to fulfill her mother's will. A little while later, the young lady was already on the train, explaining to Rose that she was doing this not out of sympathy, but because the rest of the family was too busy. The main character realized that Rose saved their family, and the Ardens always repay those who help them. She thought that this was the first time she was leaving her family estate, and was interested to imagine how huge the capital was. She was also worried about whether she would be able to understand the local pronunciation, since the capital's residents have their own accent. The brunette chuckled and asked if she was one of those people who talked non-stop when she felt lonely. The young lady replied that candidates for the princess's heir must certainly be true beauties. She asked if Mrs. Iris was beautiful, and Rose replied that yes, she was indeed beautiful. However, she added that she couldn't compare to her, so the girl shouldn't worry. Apple became curious. She thought about how beautiful Iris was and believed that perhaps she would meet her in the palace someday. Then she asked about the crown prince because almost nothing is known about him, only his name and age. The young lady decided that if she was destined to become a princess, it would be wonderful if the prince turned out to be handsome. The brunette clarified why she needed to know this, since she might not have to meet him, although fate would still bring them together. Apple was confused and wondered if she had offended the girl by asking about her future husband. Since the princess had not yet been chosen, she wondered if she should apologize, but she still couldn't figure out what for. Then the brunette said that they should decide how to address each other from now on. Apple was surprised at what they were talking about and heard that they were no longer sisters, but a princess candidate and her servant. From now on, the girl explained, she should call her only mistress and remember about decency. And she herself will simply address herself by her first name, Apple. She was surprised, but remained silent. The blonde realized this girl wasn't her mistress or sister at all, but a true witch. Rose suggested they practice. She began explaining how to brew Darjeeling tea properly: 170 milliliters of water, temperature 85 degrees, steep for 2.5 minutes. Apple asked her to wait a bit, but the brunette sternly noted that the girl should have started her answer differently. The young lady quickly agreed, and she clarified that she should say, "Yes, madam." Gritting her teeth, Apple repeated the order as directed and decided to wait until they reached the garden. After a while, someone woke her up. and the sleepy girl muttered a request for 5 more minutes. But a voice nearby asked about the proportions for brewing Darjeeling. Apple woke up instantly and confidently stated the required parameters, but soon became confused and almost fell over from fatigue. Rose told them to prepare tea, and Apple asked if they had arrived at the palace yet. The brunette replied that no, it was still a day's journey to the palace, but they would soon make a stop in Tiswell. Apple asked if they could take a short walk. She answered negatively and ordered to buy all the newspapers and magazines that would be at the station. Apple thought Rose's clothes suited her surprisingly well, and Rose added, "Let the young lady stop acting so awkwardly. She should be ashamed of falling in front of passengers." Apple was surprised because she thought they were alone on the train, but Rose asked how many noble families she thought there were in their kingdom. The young lady replied that there were 30, but the brunette said that if you count the main ones, there were 683 of them, and a third of them did not have unmarried daughters over 14 because the heads of the families were still too young. Sometimes, not only noblewomen but also representatives of other countries, royal houses participate in such selections. Therefore, their number is constantly growing, and according to the latest data, the number of candidates for the title of Crown Princess currently stands at almost 500. The main character was stunned when she heard this. Were 500 girls really competing for one spot? She wondered in surprise whether the lady had conducted her own investigation and received an affirmative answer, since it was about her own fate. Meanwhile, someone announced that the train was arriving at Tiswell Station and the stop would last about an hour. Passengers were asked to take their seats 10 minutes before departure. The brunette reminded Apple of her assignment and told her to get going. The protagonist exited the train car feeling slightly uneasy. It seemed strange to her that after a short nap she felt so uneasy. Then someone's voice addressed her, asking her to move out of the way. She calmly remarked that she should leave first and then they could come in. However, the woman cried out, "How dare the girl leave first without letting Mrs. Tiswell through, considering she was only a servant?" Another woman was indignant, asking whom this insolent person served, since their mistress must know about such terrible manners. But one of those present stated that the young lady had the right to leave the carriage first, and she did so without hesitation. Looking around at those gathered, the girl thought that in front of her must be the mistress's maids, because there were so many of them. At that moment, one of the women stumbled, lost her balance, and almost fell. The main character quickly caught her, asking if everything was okay. The green-haired lady blushed and quickly apologized. The young lady wondered what it was and why she was so embarrassed, but she didn't dwell on it. She remembered that she had things to do and decided to hurry so as not to anger Rose. At the station, she bought newspapers and magazines, noticing that the same person was featured on the covers of all the publications. It was Lady Claire, the Diamond of Tiswilla. The protagonist realized that before her stood one of the strongest contenders for the role of Crown Princess. She noted that Claire was truly beautiful and made a strong impression. A little later, the girl's gaze fell on another person who seemed familiar to her, and then she remembered this was the same girl who almost fell a few minutes ago. Then the young lady wondered, perhaps she wasn't a servant at all? Although her attire seemed too simple for such noble company, she decided that the next time they met, she would definitely say hello. Glancing at her watch, she realized it was time to return to the train. On the way, she approached a kiosk, wondering if she should buy some bread, for herself and for Rosa. She probably wouldn't mind. The girl chose several types, deciding that she would let the brunette choose which one she liked. She looked at her purchases and wondered if she had gone overboard. After all, she now had bread, newspapers, medicine, and magazines. But all this is important on the road, and illness cannot be allowed to happen. After all, Rose must be in perfect shape if she dreams of becoming the crown princess. The main character thought it would be nice to walk a little longer, but Rose was probably already waiting for her. As she approached the train, she noticed a group of excited ladies and became wary. She approached, wanting to know what was going on, but the women met her with angry looks. The main character noticed that the lady with green hair was crying and was confused, not understanding what had happened. Claire asked where she had been, and the girl explained that she had been buying groceries for her mistress. Then Lady Claire reported that Charlotte's invitation had disappeared. The protagonist was stunned. Had it really disappeared? Just recently, all the girls were sitting quietly in the train car, making small talk. One of them asked who they thought would be the winner of the garden, but no one dared to answer. And only the girl with pink hair quietly noted that there was only one place for the crown princess, which meant that there would also be only one winner. She also wondered whether it wouldn't be wiser to support a promising candidate right away, while she had a chance to prove herself. And, of course, it didn't matter at all if others thought they could surpass her. After these words, the atmosphere in the carriage became tense. However, the girl stood her ground, claiming that in any case, everyone was ready to go to the garden, even if only for insurance. She suggested checking that each person present had an invitation, after which the ladies began to take out their envelopes. But when the green-haired girl began to look for something in her bag, confusion appeared on her face. Claire became wary and asked what had happened, but she only admitted, confused, that she couldn't find the invitation. Then Claire, surprised, said that it was impossible to lose such an important thing again, because this was not the first time. She recalled that Charlotte was definitely the one in the carriage with the invitation, and no one could have failed to notice it. After this, the girl wondered with surprise why all this was happening to her, as if fate was playing a joke. Charlotte started crying, and the lady with pink hair tried to calm her down, turned to the maid and told her to invite the others. She ordered that every corner be searched, and everyone questioned, since someone might have seen the loss. However, one of the maids, having apologized to her mistress, admitted that the search had led to nothing. Then the lady with pink hair turned to the main character and said that everyone was busy searching, and asked where she had been all this time. The girl was surprised and asked when exactly the invitation had disappeared. Rosa replied that no one knew exactly when it had disappeared. They only discovered her absence when Apple went into town. After that, they searched the entire train and all the maids, but found nothing. Claire noticed that one of the maids seemed to have not yet been searched, and asked if that was true. The young lady replied that she had left the carriage immediately after the candidates' arrival and could not have stolen anything. But one of the maids countered that she had been the one who had grabbed Mrs. Charlotte. Apple, confused, asked what she was talking about, and then the maid explained that she had seen her approach Lady Voltaire from behind as she boarded the train. The young lady remembered how she had actually grabbed the pink-haired lady to keep her from falling, and cried out that she was just helping her. The girl turned to Charlotte, wanting to confirm what she had said, and she nodded, acknowledging that help had indeed been provided. The main character sighed and reminded her that she had warned her about this, but Claire insisted that the girl could have stolen the invitation under the guise of helping. She claimed to have seen it in Charlotte's hands as they left the carriage. At that moment, someone announced that there were 10 minutes left before the train's departure, and that it was time for passengers to take their seats. The young lady asked, in confusion, what she should do now, and whether she would have to undress, since she was innocent. Rose advised me to ignore the accusations and calmly go make her a cup of tea. But Claire turned to Lady Arden, asking if she wasn't planning to participate in the search. The brunette calmly replied that she didn't see the point, since her maid had no reason to steal. She added that she had already helped as much as she could, and from the very beginning, this story did not concern her. However, the lady with pink hair screamed that without an invitation, Charlotte would be excluded from the list of candidates, and she should not even board the train. The brunette just sighed and said that, unfortunately, she couldn't help in any way because she should have understood from the very beginning how important the invitation was. And in the end, she added that the blame lies solely with the one who failed to take proper care of her thing. Claire is then surprised and asks if Ms. Arden really wants to absolve herself of all responsibility for the investigation. Someone from the crowd shouts out that they need to find out the truth. If the maid is innocent, they will be able to confirm it themselves. After these words, the main character abruptly puts the basket of groceries on the ground and throws the wallet to Rose. Then she takes off her cape and boots, throwing them to the maid who accused her, remaining barefoot and without outerwear. She asks if those around her are now happy since there is not a shadow of truth in her guilt, after which she loudly demands that everyone stop this circus. They should have been looking for an invitation, not wasting their time on empty arguments and formalities. The lady shouldn't give up. After all, she's come a long way to participate in the selection. But the green-haired lady insists there's no invitation anywhere. There are only 5 minutes left before departure, and the heroine is surprised how one can say only if it's still 5 whole minutes. She turns to the lady, asks what she is doing, asks her to get ready and help look for the invitation, clarifies what it looks like, and asks to show it again. But the blonde calmly says that it's not worth it. If the maid starts looking, she'll simply lose her. In that case, not only Lady Voltaire, but also she herself would be excluded from the selection. The heroine then wonders what people will say if she doesn't help. The brunette assures that she can handle it herself, but the young lady reminds that she made a promise to the Arden family to take care of the mistress. She is not just a servant who obediently follows, because she has to repay for kindness and support. It's her duty, as a sister and heir to the Arden family. Rose only sighs heavily in response. After this, she hands over an invitation. The heroine notices a white envelope with the seal of a raven with outspread wings. It's lightly dusted with gold. It's odd they didn't notice it before. The envelope is too conspicuous to be lost. She wonders what the person who stole the letter wanted, for the sake of the seal itself, or for the dust that covered it. But that's of little value. If the girl doesn't participate in the princess selection, the letter is completely useless. The brunette suggests that there is another option and shares her thoughts with the young lady. The main character runs away in a hurry, saying that she will be back soon, and runs as fast as she can. Meanwhile, the brunette notices that since the letter was not found, perhaps a raven took it away. Apple remembers looking around while buying bread and thinks it came in unexpectedly handy. The brunette adds that the raven is always drawn to shiny objects. The heroine recalls that she saw a large nest of crows on the clock tower. And now she notices the letter lying in the branches, is glad that the raven is not nearby, and thinks about how to get there. Looking around, she notices a ladder at the nearest stall. He immediately grabs it and says that he will only take it for a minute. But the man replies that the ladder is not for sale. The young lady puts it down anyway and starts to climb, but the ladder shifts a little and she gets scared. Then one man supports her and says he'll help, advising her to be more careful. The girl thanks him. She continues to rise, feeling that time is running out. She reaches for the nest. A little more, and she will have the letter. The woman below hands over a stick and offers to use it, for which the girl expresses gratitude. With its help, she gets the letter, but it falls down, and then a raven flies up to the nest. Frightened, the young lady loses her balance and falls down. People around her gasp. She falls but feels no pain. Only someone whispers a blessing. The young man runs up and catches her, asking if everything is okay. The heroine looks at him in surprise. She thinks the guy is incredibly handsome, but then she comes to her senses and remembers the letter. She says that she must deliver the invitation to Madame Voltaire, but the young man remarks that the train has most likely already left. The heroine freezes in horror, but the guy assures her that there is no need to worry. He asked them to wait a little so that if she hurried, she would make it on time. However, looking at the envelope, the young man is surprised and turns to the lady. The young lady anxiously asks if the letter is torn, but the guy replies that it is much more serious. Meanwhile, the driver announces that the train to the capital is delayed by 30 minutes due to unforeseen circumstances. Passengers are asked to remain seated. Claire reassures Kashalata, saying that even if the girl had reached the capital, it wouldn't have meant she was destined to become the new princess. And perhaps this blessing would still play a role, because despite everything, she still didn't want to go there. The pink-haired lady, noticing her confusion, promised to do everything possible for her. So she asks Charlotte if she'll be willing to support her as a friend. Then, without looking back, she boards the train, trying not to show her nervousness. One of the maids quietly apologizes and says that since Mrs. Rose's maid is not available, she will give the cloak to her personally. However, Rose only gets irritated, grabs the maid by the hand, and asks if she was the one who arranged all this. The woman, confused, replies that she does not understand what Mrs. Rosa is talking about, and that it must be a misunderstanding. The brunette notices that Madame Voltaire's invitation came directly from the capital, so how could Apple have known about it? Perhaps it was her maid's doing, or perhaps she herself was involved, since she was also on the train. Besides, the invitation would have had no meaning to those who had not participated in the selection for the post of crown princess, so most people did not care about it. However, everything looked suspicious, because it was her she had bumped into while exiting the carriage. Meanwhile, the main character turns to the lady and informs her that the invitation has been found. Rose, frowning, asks who the young man next to her is. He calmly replies that this is the very invitation they were looking for and hands it to the lady. Apple starts to explain that she saw him when she was climbing the stairs to the crow's nest, but Rose sharply tells her to shut up. After this, she carefully examines the envelope, noticing the details, and then hands it over to Lady Voltaire. The green-haired lady thanks her, but Rose coldly replies that there is nothing to thank her for. After all, the invitation turned out to be a fake. At that moment, Claire exits the train. She's indignant, asking how they dare claim such a thing, and whether the letter is really a forgery. Rose calmly explains that the seal is slightly different from the one the royal raven uses. The pink-haired lady responds indignantly, reminding them that Charlotte is the heart of the Voltaire family, and asks how they dared to accuse her of forgery. Rose says that forging an invitation, aside from the rare gold dust, isn't that difficult, but only a true princess candidate would perceive it as something priceless. After this, she turns to Lady Tisville, asking if she can take a look at her invitation as well. Claire is shocked and asks if Rose has gone crazy and is now blaming her too. The girl shouts that her invitation is genuine, since Rosa has seen it before. But the brunette points out that she only saw the envelope, not the letter itself. And if you look at the invitation itself, you can easily determine who it really belongs to. The lady with pink hair cannot believe her ears and screams, claiming that this is her invitation and it cannot be otherwise. Then the young man apologizes to Mrs. Tisville for having to speak to her so frankly in front of everyone. He introduces himself. His name is Sid Luraire, and he serves the Knox royal family, being one of their most loyal men. He reports that His Highness has entrusted him with overseeing the selection process to ensure that everything is conducted fairly, and now he has the right to decide whether the candidate is guilty of deception. So he asks Claire to show him the invitation. She reluctantly complies. The young man carefully studies the document, and the lady with pink hair irritably says that there is no point in looking at it for so long. She insists it's her invitation, and no amount of testing will change anything, but Sid coolly replies that she'd better stop digging her own grave. He reminds her that Her Majesty's Secret Service has been monitoring all selections for many years, and advises her not to resort to such tricks anymore. After this, the young man hands the document to the green-haired lady and states that on behalf of the judge of the selection for the post of Crown Princess, Claire Teaswell is declared disqualified. Horrified, she declares that this simply can't be happening. But Sid calmly adds that the issue has been resolved, and now everyone should return to their places. The pink-haired lady glares at the main character and screams, barely containing her rage. She couldn't understand why she'd gotten involved in a situation that had nothing to do with her. After all, she disliked the girl from the start, and now she was sticking her nose into things she wasn't invited to. It seemed unfair, since she considered herself the best candidate for the role of princess. The girl passionately declares that for the prosperity of the kingdom, only the most worthy candidate should receive an invitation to the garden. But then Sid stood in front of her and coldly remarked that the conversation was over. He emphasized that her behavior was disturbing the other participants, and politely asked her to leave the platform. Then the girl cried out that they should not touch her, because she had done nothing wrong. At that moment, the main character sneezed and said she felt unwell. Rose advised her to forget about it and go inside if she didn't want to freeze. On the train, the girl complained that she had a terrible headache, and thought that she might have caught a cold. Apple looked at Rose and asked what was wrong with her, adding that if she was tired, she should have rested where she was supposed to. But the girl replied that she didn't want to, because she was so cold and uncomfortable that she was going crazy. The brunette was surprised and said that she didn't expect that the young lady had finally started to think at least a little. Apple wondered why she had said that at all, and asked the lady to explain what exactly she had done wrong. Rose asked ironically if she really didn't understand her mistake, to which the girl flushed and admitted that that was exactly why she was asking. Then Rose reminded him what would have happened if Mr. Loray had not delayed the train. The main character didn't know what to answer, and Rose continued that she probably thought that poison ivy grew in the garden on its own. But since she is a servant, she is obliged to follow the rules, and her behavior at the station completely contradicted these duties. After this, the girl quietly apologized, realizing that she was indeed to blame. However, Rose told her not to twist her words and to explain exactly where she had gone wrong. Then the girl admitted that she had disobeyed the request not to interfere in the affairs of the Voltaire household, and also that she left the station although there were only 5 minutes left before departure, and although she promised to return on time, she was still late. The brunette added that the girl almost fell into an eternal sleep and that Sid Leraire told her everything. After all, she fell down the stairs, and Rose could not contain her indignation, calling her a real heroine. She noticed that she left her alone on the train, busy with her own affairs, which surprised the girl. Rose was about to say something else, but at that moment there was a knock on the door. The main character approached and asked who was there. When she opened the door, she saw Madame Voltaire. Charlotte greeted her and asked if Madame Arden had a moment to talk. The young lady said the mistress was inside and invited them in. The brunette greeted Lady Voltaire. Then she asked why her maids were absent. The girl turned to Arden. She said that she had come to thank both of them for their help and gave them homemade treats for the road. If they didn't mind, she asked them to accept it as a token of gratitude. Rosa, surprised, asked if she was thanking them, even though it was because of them that her friend had been expelled. Green-haired Charlotte replied that she still considered Lady Claire her friend, even though she had done nothing for her. And although she was happy to have the opportunity to get into the garden, she would not refuse to give up her seat to her friend because she was right. There is nothing special about her, and besides, she is too shy. She wouldn't make a real princess, but despite this, she is obliged to participate in the selection. And perhaps for the first time, he will be able to help his family with his own efforts. The main character thought that, indeed, participation in the garden can completely change the situation of any family. That's why all the candidates are trying so hard, even Rose. At that moment, Charlotte thanked Lady Arden for her help, but, turning to the young lady, she admitted she didn't know her name. She replied that her name was Apple. Charlotte said that the Voltaire family was now indebted to her, and that as a member of that family she would do everything to repay. The main character and Rose exchanged glances, slightly surprised, and for a while simply looked at the girl in silence. Charlotte was embarrassed, asked them to try the treat, and assured them that everything was prepared with love. Then she apologized and, saying goodbye, left the room. After she left, they began eating the cookies, and Rose noticed they were clearly not poisoned. The protagonist looked at her in bewilderment. Then she tried it too and thought how delicious it was. Then Rose said she was ready to forgive her this time. The young lady was surprised and asked why exactly, and the brunette reminded them that they had just discussed all of this. Then Apple assures that she will not behave like that anymore and will now be a faithful servant, focused on her duties. However, the brunette reminds her that she is only human, and if she suddenly makes a mistake, the consequences could be dangerous. After all, a thoughtless act could not only harm her, but also send her into eternal sleep. Therefore, she always tries to calculate her steps to understand what to do and when. She also considers why she's willing to sacrifice her own life. At this point, the young lady becomes a little worried about Rose, but she claims that now for Apple, as her servant, the most important thing should be her, because she only has a few months left to serve her. And during this time, she is obliged to remember the main thing that now belongs only to her. After these words, the main character is slightly surprised, and they continue on their way in silence. After some time, the girl is already sleeping in her bed, and Rose quietly goes somewhere. There she runs into Sid, who asks in surprise if it's Miss Arden herself. However, the British woman motions for him to remain silent. She suggests they go to the end of the yard, as they need to talk. When they step outside, the guy throws his cape over her. He asks if the mistress's chief servant has truly fallen asleep. The brunette replies that she probably caught a cold. She bought the medicine for her, but had to use it herself, and that's why she fell asleep. The blonde man sympathetically remarks how poor she is. She must have caught a cold while running around the Tisville station. He promises to get her more medicine, but the girl coolly replies that she doesn't need handouts. She then asks what the future Duke of Lorraire was doing at Tisville station. The young man replies that he was worried about her. Rose wonders about whom exactly, but the young man says that's perfectly natural. After all, she had come such a long way to the Arden estate, and he was going to use the station's telephone line to contact her. Then the young lady asks if he knew the day of her departure. The guy smiles and admits he's a little confused about the schedule. The girl jokingly remarks that he's almost made a fool of himself and, as usual, doesn't understand anything. The blonde replies that this is precisely why Lady Iris is always worried about her, because they worry about her more than about him. He claims Lady Rose is disturbing everyone around her. The girl removes the ring from her little finger, and the magic gradually dissipates. Rose says that Leto and Steele are doing great, and asks to tell them not to worry about his safety. The blonde man objects that 2 guards are too few to feel at peace, but the guy grins and says that this old man will never calm down, even if he carries knights in his bag. He adds that he will only be able to rest easy when he locks him up. The blonde wonders if he has gone too far, since he even came up with an alter ego for himself. However, the young man simply asks what's wrong with that. Sid tries to add something, but the young man sharply tells him to shut up. Then he puts the ring back on and coldly tells him not to dare stand in his way. After all, he doesn't need anyone, not even a friend. The next morning, the main character sits next to Rose. She asks if Rose knows who Mr. Sid Lorraire is. Rose is slightly surprised and asks what exactly she means. The main character smiles and says she thinks he's a real charmer. The brunette nearly chokes on her water and asks, surprised, what she's talking about. The girl approaches her and asks if everything is okay, but Rose asks a counter question in response. Does the young lady like Sid Lorraire himself? Apple is surprised, but admits he's indeed handsome. Then Rose reminds her that she recently said that she wasn't interested in guys. The main character, wiping the tea from her face, says that perhaps that was the case, but then she only knew Mark. And now I have met a completely different person. A pleasant and well-mannered person like Mr. Lorraire. The brunette smiles and remarks that if she likes him so much, then why not talk to him herself? Then he asks if she won't even try, but the young lady replies that she doesn't know what to talk about. Rose offers her a little hint, and the main character asks if they have known each other before. The brunette just sighs heavily and asks if she has really forgotten her name. The young lady confidently says that her name is Rose, to which her interlocutor replies that her full name is Rose Lorraire. Sid Lorraire turns out to be her half-brother, and this discovery stuns the main character, as if the ground was falling out from under her feet. Meanwhile, someone reports that the train will cross the St. Welprout border in just 10 minutes. The young lady immediately turns to Rosa, amazed. After all, the Tisville station seemed vast and beautiful to her, and she can't imagine how majestic the palace itself will be. The brunette calmly replies that they're just crossing the border, and the station is still half an hour away. The main character looks out the window, trying to see at least something, but admits that she is still nervous. The brunette remarks that perhaps the girl will now become more attentive, but the latter, confused, asks if she is joking, since she really does have a hard time concentrating. At that moment, a blonde man enters the compartment, thanks everyone for their patience, and says it's been a long journey from the Arden estate. He mentions that he needs to make a few announcements, as there likely won't be enough time at the station. He adds that upon arrival at the station, reporters will likely be waiting for them, ready to ask their questions. After all, the entire country is eagerly awaiting the arrival of the candidates. Everyone wants to know who they are, what their interests are, their past, and even their family secrets. And, he jokes, they'll probably be interested to know what the girls had for breakfast. The main character is secretly horrified. Will there really be journalists? She begins to worry, even if the attention is not directed at her, because any mistake she makes could lead to trouble. And if something goes wrong, Rose will be the first to suffer, so the girl tries to calm down. The young man continues stating that he would be happy to personally escort the ladies to the palace, but as a representative of the judicial committee, he cannot communicate too closely with them. He asks you not to worry if he suddenly disappears, because he will stay behind so as not to interfere. Rose remarks with a smile that she will be glad to see Duke Lurer again, and the main character at that moment becomes thoughtful. She realizes that Rose and the Duke look like the perfect couple, while she herself is just a servant who doesn't have even the slightest chance. But suddenly, the guy extends his hand to her and politely asks for permission. The girl feels that she cannot refuse, although she tries to maintain restraint when he gently touches her hand. After this, the young man turns to Lady Arden, asking for her hand, to which the girl, confused, says that she is just a servant. He calmly replies that he understood everything as soon as he saw her next to Rose, and so he wants to greet her properly, asking if she will allow him to do so. The young lady blushes, embarrassed to the depths of her soul, and when he kisses her hand, her heart seems to stop. After this, the young man thanks her for taking care of his sister, and the girl feels her cheeks burning. Rose is angry, trying not to show her irritation, and soon the train arrives at St. Wellprout Station. As soon as they come out, they are immediately surrounded by a crowd of reporters with cameras and notepads. The main character is stunned by what is happening, and one of the journalists turns to Lady Rose, asking for a few words. He wonders if it is true that she is the illegitimate daughter of Duke Lurer. He then asks what she thinks about excluding her friend, Lady Tisville, from the list of candidates. The main character blinks from the blinding flashes and does not understand what they are talking about. Rosa calmly tells her not to fall behind, but not to rush, and at this time, another journalist addresses her. He claims that this was all a prearranged plot and asks for a comment, but the knights demand that they keep their distance to ensure the girl's safety. The main character is shocked and thinks that all this looks like madness, but Rose remains cool and collected, as always. Here, one of the men asks if it is true that Lady Arden helped eliminate Lady Tisville, as she was her main rival. The young lady almost screams in indignation, but Rose raises her hand, stopping her. She reminds that the girl promised to obey, and she is forced to obey. The main character raises her hand, and the reporters freeze for a second. She introduces herself as Rose Arden, a candidate from the Arden family, and he says he knows almost nothing about Lady Claire Tisville's exclusion, except that she was a worthy participant. She adds that Claire was not only beautiful but also talented, which causes silent shock in the main character. After this, the brunette confesses that she is indeed the illegitimate daughter of Duke Lurer, but he says he always treated her with love, like family. Apple is shocked. This is completely different from what she's heard before. The girl continues, asking not to judge her family harshly, and Apple can't believe her eyes. Is this really all just a game? The brunette holds back tears, saying that she has nothing more to add and thanks everyone for their attention. The main character, standing to the side, cannot look away, amazed by what is happening. After this, she turns to the lady, asking her not to be upset, and soon they both climb into the carriage. The main character admits that she is tired, adding that Rose is behaving like a real actress, but she calmly replies that she told the truth. Apple is surprised, asking if the words about the illegitimate child were really said on purpose. The girl replies that it was a deliberate move, a kind of strategy, after which she invites the young lady to look out the window. The photo they took now would be on the front pages tomorrow, because the Arden and Voltaire families weren't particularly well known, and Apple was worried that there might be no one around. So the scandal with Mrs. Tisville turned out to be to their advantage. But the heroine still does not understand why it was necessary to go so far. The girl reminds her sister that there are as many as 500 candidates, and asks how she plans to cope with such competition. The heroine believes that the reporters were unnecessarily rude, but Rose adds that Ms. Tisville was both talented and a good candidate, and asks why she said that. She calmly notes that, knowing Count Tisville, he will certainly shift the blame onto someone else. The young lady exclaims that journalists should write only the truth, because that is what she was taught since childhood. The brunette advises using this incident as a lesson, and remembering that 9 out of 10 people always lie. The heroine admits that she thought the capital was full of kind and great people, but everything turned out differently, and the girl was a little sad, Rose looked confused, unsure what to say. The heroine notices this and asks what happened, and the girl simply puts her hand on her palm. A short time passes and their carriage stops at a checkpoint. The young man asks their names, and Apple says it's Lady Rose Arden. The young man confirms that the invitation and references are genuine. He asks how many servants the lady has. Apple replies that she has only one, and then the young man asks for the name of the head maid. The heroine invites him to come closer, and Rose wonders why he whispers, since the name is not so strange. Apple admits it's not exactly a secret, she's just embarrassed. The name sounds like a cartoon princess. Rose smiles, calling him cute, and asks what's wrong with that. She offers to pronounce it herself, but the heroine immediately rushes to her, asking her to remain silent and not to pronounce it out loud. The young man announces that the inspection is over and hands them a small box. Apple breathes a sigh of relief. Everything turned out to be much simpler than she expected, and wonders what's inside. Rose replies that the real game begins now, and asks her sister to concentrate. At that moment, they are welcomed to the blessed land of Saint Wellprout. After a short time, they enter Rose's chambers, and the heroine is amazed by the luxury of the room. Rose falls onto the bed, saying that she will look around the rooms later, but for now let Apple open the box. Apple obeys her mistress and notices a map and a note inside. She asks if Rose wants her to read the note, because the girl looks tired. The heroine begins to read. The letter says that the participants are in the palace. It also mentions that this could be Emily's or Sasser's palace, but leaving the palace is forbidden. Apple concludes that they are in Emily's palace. The royal maid will bring them breakfast directly to their chambers, and lunch and dinner can be taken in the common dining rooms or ordered to the room. If they wish to leave the palace, they must give 12 hours notice so that nights can be assigned. The gates are open from 9 in the morning until 9 in the evening, and overnight stays outside the palace are prohibited. In exceptional cases, the king may grant leave. Apple asks if this is related to Lady Ida, and she suggests that it probably is. The girl continued reading and learned that each candidate was allowed to take only 4 maids for free. If the number exceeded 5, the living expenses of the remaining maids must be covered by the participants' personal funds. Servants provided by the palace will clean and do laundry twice a day. However, candidates may refuse these services and carry out their own chores. Classes at the palace will be held twice a day, morning and evening. Each participant can choose the courses they prefer. If they prefer private lessons, they will be responsible for the tutor's fees. The dinner is scheduled in the main hall connecting the 2 palaces. The doors are open until midnight, and it is here that the candidates will be able to mingle freely. Then the young lady finds another section, a list of prohibitions. It states that candidates are prohibited from possessing weapons, poisons, or any unprocessed materials. Substances that could cause allergies or worsen well-being due to heat are also prohibited. Only certain types of writing instruments are permitted. Candidates are prohibited from harming, threatening, or blackmailing other participants. Armed guards are also prohibited in the palace, with the exception of personal maids. If anyone breaks these rules, the Royal Commission has the power to confiscate the offender's feathers and, in some cases, immediately exclude them from the selection process. Rose then clarifies whether this is all, after which the girl curiously asks what exactly is meant by these feathers. The brunette explains that it's a special symbol, a talisman of sorts. She says they'll explain it in more detail during the welcoming ceremony, so Apple shouldn't worry. The main character asks if a welcoming ceremony is really planned. The girl confirms and adds that she's sure the guy will appear there again as a servant. After this, she gets out of bed and says that she has something important to tell Apple. The young lady wonders what she means and sits down on a chair next to the bed, waiting for her to continue. The brunette declares that from now on she will become not only her mistress's eyes and ears, but also her hands, and even her legs. The rules also state that candidates are prohibited from inquiring about other participants. Furthermore, they are not allowed to leave their quarters without the escort of a maid. This implies that half the candidate's success depends on her handmaid. Apple wonders if this is really so important. The girl confirms, yes. That's why they're allowed to have personal assistants. Then Apple asks if it can be compared to a game of chess. Rose agrees, saying that if the candidate is the king, then the maid represents the figures who are supposed to protect him. These pieces can be anything: a knight, a rook, or even a pawn, depending on how they act on the board. The protagonist wonders if this means that she herself could end up as one of the pieces, perhaps a rook, a bishop, or even a queen. The lady grins and replies that Apple is just a pawn at the moment. She could ask anyone, and they'd all say the same thing. The heroine is shocked by such a statement, but Rose adds that if she tries, she can become a queen one day. She advises him not to lose heart, but Apple is still irritated and exclaims how petty Rose is. The girl wants to continue, but doesn't have time to finish. At this moment, one of the servants approaches the lady, apologizing and saying that he must convey information about the upcoming ceremony to Lady Rose Arden. The young lady approaches the door and sees a maid holding a small box. She announces that the welcoming ceremony will take place in 3 days, at exactly 11 in the morning in the great garden between the palaces of Imali and Sasser. The visit came to an end, and that was all. Then the heroine opened the box and noticed a neatly folded dress inside. She immediately turns to Rose, assuming it must be a gift from the royal palace, but Rose calmly replies that it's a maid's uniform. And from that moment on, the real game began. Rose warns the girl to be careful and not call her by her first name outside the walls of these chambers. The heroine agrees, and after a short time puts on the new uniform, still feeling a slight excitement. She wonders why, if her skills are so mediocre, Rose doesn't delegate this to someone else. The brunette explains that her room is a sacred place, and she does not let in those she does not trust. The girl tries different hairstyles, but soon cries out in disappointment. No matter what she does, nothing turns out the way she wanted. Rose smiles, saying that everything looks quite nice, but the heroine interrupts her. She quickly adds that she wanted to ask if Rosa knew anything about the latest fashion trends in the capital, and she exclaims that she herself has never heard of them. The young lady realizes that Rose has essentially sent her out to find someone who can teach her, and yet she is glad that Madame Charlotte was placed in the same palace. Perhaps fate is favoring her. After that, she turns the corner, uncertainly wondering if she's going in the right direction. Then she stops at the door. Plucking up her courage, she knocks. When the door opens, the girl bows and greets the mistress of the chambers. Looking up, she asks if she remembers her, because she has a request. But a tall, strongly built maid suddenly appears in front of her, causing the heroine to freeze in shock. She couldn't help but be surprised, thinking he was a man. The maid, with slight irritation, replied that she was a girl. The heroine quickly apologizes, bows, and claims that she must have mixed up the doors, mentally amazed that she didn't notice the similarity in the uniforms. Apple is about to disappear from embarrassment when a voice from the depths of the room calls out to Mary, asking if they really have a guest. A blonde lady emerges from behind the screen and asks how she can help. The heroine is struck by her beauty, but soon he notices familiar features on her face that cause slight surprise. She thinks the lady bears an uncanny resemblance to Sid Leraire, and she cautiously asks if she is a relative of Mr. Leraire. The blonde smiles and confirms that Sid is her brother, asking if the girl knows him personally. The heroine is slightly embarrassed, not knowing what to answer, and says that she is simply his admirer. Iris smiles and says that it must be fate, and Apple is at a loss as to what is happening. Iris invites her in, but the heroine shyly tries to refuse, although the maid is already gently pulling her inside. Once in the room, the girl is amazed. There are many maids around, and the atmosphere is incomparable with Rose's chambers. There are at least 24 of them here, and Iris, noticing her confusion, adds that she should introduce herself first. She calls herself Iris Leraire, Sid's sister. The heroine immediately feels how different the atmosphere is here, completely unlike Rose's severity. Realizing she's already here anyway, she decides to take advantage of the moment and talk about Sid. She introduces herself as Apple. She explains that she serves Lady Rose Arden and that she met Sid Leraire by chance on the train on her way to the palace. He helped her at the station. Iris breathes a sigh of relief, admitting that she was very worried when she learned about the train's delay, as they arrived without security. She says that she didn't even have time to greet her brother, but now, after the conversation, she feels calmer. Iris decides to get down to business and asks how she can help. The heroine then explains that she's Rose's only assistant. And that's why she has no one to help her with her hair and makeup, because she lives far from the capital and doesn't know the latest fashion trends, but would like to learn. Iris assures them that they can learn a lot, because Mary is the best hairdresser in the entire Duchy of Lorraine. Apple is at a loss, not immediately understanding what exactly she meant, and after a while everything becomes clear. Mary takes a comb and begins to braid the girl's hair. While talking about the new fashions of the capital, she explains that it is now common to part your hair and gather some strands at the back, leaving the rest free. He adds that this style especially suits Ms. Apple. The girl is surprised and asks if this is true. Mary smiles, insisting that the heroine obediently follows all her advice, suggesting they try a new option. Iris approvingly remarks that Mary is truly magnificent. If the girl wishes to learn anything else, she is allowed to come at any time. The young lady nods in agreement, but silently prays to be released and spared her suffering, as she longs most of all to return home. After this, the main character braids her hair and understands for the first time how it is done, feeling a slight satisfaction from the work done. At this point, Iris turns to Lady Apple, who asks what's wrong. The blonde then asks to be called simply Iris, without any titles. She asks if everything is okay with Rose, because they were very worried, especially when they learned that she refused help on the way to the Ardennes estate. The main character recalls the events associated with Rose and is perplexed as to why this girl suddenly shows such concern for her. She replies that Mr. Sid Lorraire asked the same thing, and thanks Iris for taking care of Mistress Rose. The blonde says that when Rose lived at the Lorraire estate, she often looked like she had lost interest in life. Now Iris suggests coming more often, assuring that she would be happy to talk, and if the girl warns about the visit in advance, the best treats await her. The young lady promises to convey this to Madame Rose, and understands that now she is the only person she can trust. Iris adds that if the girl is likely to get lost, Mary should guide her. The protagonist wonders if she's being considerate or just trying to keep an eye on her. She follows the maid, realizing that she actually knows almost nothing about Rose. Along the way, Apple decides that she should ask more questions, as it could clear up a lot of things. At first, she was irritated by her parents' attention to Rose, but now she realizes that she doesn't feel anger towards her. Mary remarks that it is time for them to go, but then someone calls out to her, asking who is with her. The woman asks if it is a puppy, and the young lady tries to understand who is speaking. Mary replies that this is her Grace, Mrs. Peneltia. She mockingly asks if they're running errands. The woman adds that they might also be delivering dog food. Mary apologizes and says it's time for them to go. But Lady Peneltia stops them, saying it's too early, and turns to Apple. She demands that the maid greet her properly. The protagonist bows, trying to remain calm. She politely says that she is glad to meet you, but deep down she knows that she doesn't know who is standing in front of her or how to address her properly. The lady with scarlet hair is surprised that the girl doesn't know who she is. Then he notices that she doesn't look like a servant of the Lorraire family at all. Another servant explains that she is Lady Rose Arden's personal maid. The woman asks again, referring specifically to Rose Arden, and claims that she has never heard of her before. A moment later, she remembers what she read about her, about the illegitimate daughter that was written about in the newspapers. So according to her, Rose is just from some Viscount's family. Apple wonders if she really said that. The woman continues, wondering how the Viscount's daughter's maid dared to show herself to her. After that, she raises her hand and there is a sharp bang as the blow hits. But Apple doesn't feel any pain. When she opens her eyes, she sees Mary standing between them. In a rage, Lady Peneltia asks how she dared to defend the servant of a dubious girl who dared not honor her with attention. Mary calmly replies that the girl is now an honored guest of Mrs. Iris. The woman smirks, asking if she is really a guest of the Lorraire family. She adds sarcastically that the Lorraire servants are protecting the maid Arden, and he even considers her an honored guest of this house. After this, the woman tells them to go. Apple is surprised, not understanding what they are talking about, but the lady repeats that she is letting them go for today. Coming closer, she takes Apple by the chin and quietly orders her to keep a closer eye on her mistress. Then he suddenly pulls away and leaves, leaving behind an unpleasant feeling. Meanwhile, the prince watches what is happening through the mirror, and a bird sitting nearby notices that this is all. The young man orders the bird to keep an eye on the girl when he's not around and report any incidents. The bird promises to do so, but he clarifies that he must carry it out under any circumstances and hand everything over to Steele. The young man warns that he won't repeat it twice. The bird replies that it will do as its master commands. At this time, the young man hears a knock on the door and a voice saying that it is the lady. The girl asks if the mistress is still inside. Rose quickly puts on the ring and asks if she's back. The young man again takes on a female form, and the main character begins to search for Madame Rose. The brunette opens the door and says she's tired and needs to change. Apple asks if she needs help. She adds that she can help next time since it is part of her duties, but Rose is surprised by her words. The main character explains that the maid's duty is to help her mistress with her outfits, but she replies that she does a fine job herself and forbids her to enter when she is in the dressing room. This also applies to the bathroom, but the main character wonders why, and isn't it hard for her to sort out all the clothes herself? The brunette claims that Apple is her only servant, so she has to use her as efficiently as possible, which means that such tasks are not part of her duties. Well, she still wonders why the girl returned so late. Their main character says that the thing is that. However, the brunette only tells her to wait and understands that something is wrong, because in the mirror, she looked completely different. After which, he asks if the girl didn't say that her cold had gone away in the morning, and also, did she really deceive her? Apple claims that she really is better off, and Rose understands that the girl was truly scared, and if she is subjected to such stress, she could fall ill again, and she would never have let her go if she'd known this would happen. After which, the girl takes out the medicine. And he tells Apple to accept him and also rest, but the young lady claims that this is the mistress's bed. Rose then says that today the girl can take advantage of it, so let her be grateful. She also unbraids the girl's hair and takes off her shoes, and also screams at her to do something in society without her. She then settles down with the young lady, and the main character asks if they can sleep together. Rose then asks if she really wants the two of them to be sick, and the young lady claims that she misses her mother, and about her father, about Mrs. Hannah, and even about Mark. Well, she doesn't even have the opportunity to invite them there. The brunette then says what a silly girl she is. After all, they only left a couple of days ago. The main character replies that she knows but still misses him, after which the brunette remains silent for a while. And then she sits on the bed and claims that since they can't invite them there, she will stay next to her instead of them. The main character then wishes Rose sweet dreams and then turns around. The brunette then looks at her hand and remembers how the young lady held on to her, after which she asserts that she always does what she wants. He also says the night will be long. A little later, Rose claims 3 days have already passed. And the girl knows how important it is for a candidate to meet and chat in the main hall, and yet she is the only servant who fell ill. And she also thinks that she can instantly cure her with some simple magic. But only a few can use magic, and if she uses it inside the royal palace, she will be immediately discovered. And it's easier to manipulate a girl who knows nothing than a bunch of suspicious maids. And the best outcome would be if the girl acted like an older sister, ready to sacrifice her needs for the sake of the younger one. After all, Steele's feathers could control the minds of others, and it seemed to her that finally, in front of her, was the very pawn that she could use without a twinge of conscience. However, her expectations were not met at all, and the girl is completely unpredictable and capricious, and will most likely become an obstacle to her plan. At this moment, someone knocks on the door, and Rose wonders who it is. Then the girl enters the room, and he also wishes her good morning. Rose asks if this is Lady Voltaire, and she also realizes that, just think, she should have come now. The green-haired lady claims she's been meaning to pay her respects for a long time, but she couldn't meet her either in the hall or at dinner. The brunette then thinks that, in other words, no one has accepted her, you and your coalition, and it is difficult to understand the true intentions of the lady from Tisville, after which the brunette smirks. And she also thinks that perhaps this girl could be useful to her. The green-haired lady, meanwhile, merely apologizes because she didn't warn about the visit in advance, but the Brand College tells her to come in. She also asks if they can chat a little, since she is overcome with boredom because her maid has caught a cold. Charlotte then asks what she's talking about, and the brunette replies that, unfortunately, the Arden family. She couldn't assign her more servants. The green-haired lady then says, "Just think about it." And it was so rude on her part, so she asks to accept her sincere apologies. But she can't even imagine how much inconvenience she caused them by provoking such a conversation. Rose then asks her to be a little quieter so as not to wake up her maid and asks, "Will the girl keep this a secret?" The green-haired lady replies yes, and a short while later they're already sitting at the table. The brunette then asks how the small talk in the room went, and given the atmosphere, she's sure many of them have formed their own circle. Charlotte then asks, a little surprised, how she found out, and the brunette replies that it's quite natural. After all, in the end, many ladies realize that they will not reach the throne, but can they really afford to return home so early? After which Rose turns to Mrs. Voltaire and asks if she has chosen her social circle. Or perhaps she lacked the courage to make the acquaintance. Charlotte then asks for forgiveness for her arrogance. Well, she claims that with all her heart she would like to support both of them, just as they helped her on the way there. And of course she doesn't realize much, but she still does. The brunette only smiles after that. She also asks what the main coalitions are at the moment. Charlotte claims that the leading ones are the ladies who supported Duchess Iris Leraire and the girls who stood behind her. Lady Can Peneltia. The Duchy of Leraire has been a staunch ally of the royal family for centuries, so much so that many follow her by name alone. Peneltia is a very young family of marquises, but the lady behaves quite provocatively, and she does not want to seem rude. But she is surprised that the woman has already found allies for herself. The lady with green hair then gets a little nervous and claims that, to be honest, she is confused. The welcoming ceremony will take place tomorrow, and the ceremonial staff claims that it is necessary to behave with restraint during the welcoming ceremony. And if she's nervous, the girl suggests going there together. Charlotte then asks if it's true. And she also states that she would be very happy about this and let the lady be sure that she will conduct tomorrow's greeting in the best possible way. After this, Charlotte leaves, and the brunette remains in the room with the main character. She then approaches the mirror and realizes that these data follow Peneltia like the last servants, regardless of her status. And the garden is a confrontation between hundreds of sought-after brides and the desire of each to seize the crown princess's opposition. However, some have already realized the insignificance of their chances and have chosen other candidates who are worth supporting. And if the girl returns from the garden with good results, then the suitors will immediately crowd at the gate. Such ladies are considered a wonderful opportunity by noble maidens, which means that the vow of eternal love is sung by the entire nation. It's nothing more than a political game of dominance, and the guy claims he will break these outdated traditions with her own hands. A little while later, Rosa puts her hand to the girl's forehead and claims that her fever has finally gone down, and today she can already stand on her feet. The main character then opens her eyes and immediately jumps out of bed. The brunette claims that the girl slept for 3 days, and because of this, they didn't even have a chance to get acquainted in the garden or at lunch. Apple then apologizes and claims that she didn't think she was so severely affected by the disease. After which she claims that she will be right back, and when she comes back, she wishes the lady good morning and asks if she wants to style her hair in the latest fashion. The girl then asks if the maid thinks she wants to have anything to do with Leraire's idea of the latest fashion, and if she should just put everything together as usual. Apple asks the lady if she's sure, because others will probably do everything they can to stand out today, and also mentally curses the girl and thinks that she's been practicing for so long. After this, the brunette only smiles and claims that she is already beautiful. A little while later, they are heading down the corridor, and someone addresses Ms. Arden. It turns out to be a lady with green hair, and she claims that this part is for her to accompany her to the ceremony today. Charlotte also turns to the main character and asks how she feels today, to which the girl replies that everything is fine and thanks her for her concern. She also says that she's just a servant in this palace, so Madame Voltaire should just call her Apple. However, the girl says no, and that won't do. But she also tells Ms. Apple that she was very surprised when she found out that she is actually the Viscount's daughter, and she is haunted by the thought that the lady who saved her addresses her in such a formal manner, and it also makes her very embarrassed. So the girl cries out that she simply can't allow this. The protagonist then turns to the lady, and she claims that if people hear that she addresses her like that, she will find herself in an awkward situation. So she suggests observing formalities within the garden, and if there are no strangers around, they can quite easily omit the formalities. And even if they are from different cities, their houses are still located in the north of the country, so they can be friends. The green-haired lady only becomes embarrassed by such words and asks if she wants to be her friend. The blonde insists she understands and that it could put her in a difficult position as well. So Charlotte asks what she's saying, since she'd be happy to. After which he asks the girl to be her friend, and the main character says that they did not agree. And the lady with green hair smiles after that, and Rose watches this with a smile on her face. After which she moves on, and Apple asks the lady for forgiveness and claims that she is already on her way. After which they head to the garden, and the young lady looking at him says that there are such places in the palace. When they enter the clearing, the main character is surprised at how much space there is. One of the girls then says that the others should look because there is another one there and she is very pretty. The main character then exchanges glances with the lady with red hair, after which she only turns away from her. Then Apple and Rose also pass by the table with Iris, and the main character thinks, aren't they supposed to exchange greetings? Or does Rose not want to be associated with the Lurer family? When they sit down at the table, the main character thinks how bright it is there, but she realizes that Rose looks unperturbed and that all noble girls are like that. After which she looks at Lady Iris and realizes that she also looks calm. Then the young lady looks at the woman with red hair, but when she catches her gaze, then he immediately turns around and realizes that he is also watching with interest. The main character then turns to Rose and asks if she is nervous. However, the brunette puts a piece of her made dessert into her mouth, and Apple thinks how delicious it is. Rose then states that it will start now, so let the girl be attentive. Then someone wishes eternal prosperity and blessings to the great kingdom of Nox, and also greets all the most beautiful, wise, and noble ladies in the name of His Majesty the King. The man also claims that he is honored to introduce the 7 judges who will be watching and evaluating them throughout the entire process. One of them turns out to be Sid, or the lady looks at him and gets a little embarrassed. The guy then sees the main character at the table and smiles at her, while the girl thinks in shock. Did he really just smile at her, after which he became completely embarrassed, and also thought that this couldn't be true and that he probably looked at Rose? The girl also says how wonderful Sid is, but after that she just sighs. And he also says what a bastard he is. Apple asks if the lady really said anything, and if she was talking about Mr. Sid. The brunette only says that this gentleman on the catwalk is an inaccessible flower. And it's even funny that the young lady thinks that sometimes Rose's words fly completely past her, because first the girl called the guy a bastard and then a flower. And finally, the advisor to the Kingdom of Nox, as well as the Minister of Internal Affairs, comes out. That is, Duchess Layla Positil Pantheon. The young lady then thinks she is a duchess and a minister, but she feels awkward just from looking in her direction. And according to tradition, the ladies of the royal family are responsible for checking all candidates for crown princess. However, at the moment, there are no such ladies in the royal family, and therefore the Duchess of Pantheon, who is the sister of the late queen, will take on such responsibility. The woman claims that for her, it is part of greeting the young ladies who may one day lead the Kingdom of Nox, and she thanks them from the bottom of her heart for taking the time to be there today. And even if she never reaches the level of their late queen, she, Layla Positil Pantheon, swears by the wings of the bright raven. Ensure fairness throughout the selection process. One of the girls at this point claims that Duchess Pantheon is magnificent, albeit intimidating, and the other one claims that, in the end, she became a duchess on her own even as a woman, and she should be with a leading political figure. Another lady claims she heard that the duchess wants to push through a completely new law, and she's a little nervous. The woman will simply clap her hands and state that she thinks it is time to discuss it. This is something they are all undoubtedly concerned about, and this is the purpose of this selection. The Duchess tells them to be attentive. It also states that the noble maiden who demonstrates outstanding talent throughout the garden will receive one of these golden feathers. The golden feathers are intended to single out the ladies worthy of such an honor, and she asks them to also note that all the feathers are enchanted and cannot be counterfeited. If any of them breaks the rules, a certain number of feathers will be confiscated from her possession according to the decision of the panel of judges. From the present moment, this is their assessment and their lives, and they also understand that they are the ladies of the Nox Kingdom. So let them collect these feathers regardless of the price that stands before them, and within the framework of its quite reasonable expectations, any noble maiden who cannot get a single opera within 2 weeks, she will be automatically excluded from the selection and will leave their garden. The woman when she claims that the lady suddenly looks awkward. And of course, even the most inconspicuous candidate has a chance of success if she is ready to do everything for it. Yes, and Diades Koleifal. Besides, the only thing that matters to them now is Peru, and in fact, it might even be close to them now. The woman then claims that the flower that turns its head to the south at noon, and also the flower that glows scarlet at its peak. 2 feathers are hidden in a garden of such flowers, so why not raise their glasses in honor of the first competition of the Garden of Noble Maidens? After which she asks them to take their glasses and also wishes them eternal prosperity and blessings to the great kingdom of Nox. The ladies also wish this, and when everyone puts down their glasses, the Duchess looks at Rose, who looks back coldly. The protagonist looks at her mistress and wonders where she's looking. At this time, the ladies begin to disperse, after which there is no one left at the table. The main character then thinks about the flower that turns its head to the south at noon, and the one that glows scarlet at the peak. But she hasn't the slightest idea, so she thinks there's no choice and they'll have to figure it out on the fly. But the main character also understands that Rose is probably nervous, and she needs to pull herself together to help the lady. And a noble lady's maid in the garden must be her eyes, ears, hands, and feet. So she must not let the other girls find the feather first, and now the young lady rises from her seat. After which he turns to the lady and extends his hand to her, and also asks if they should move forward and understands that she must be the first to find this feather. Afterwards, they head through the garden, and the girl insists it's a real labyrinth, even though she's already forgotten where they entered it. Rose then tells Apple to just stay with her. However, the young lady claims that they need feathers so that the girl becomes the winner of the garden. The brunette claims that today is just a warm-up, and she is confident that within the next 2 weeks she will be able to earn more. And also says that Apple should remember that they should not get involved with certain coalitions, and if they quietly wait for their turn, then one will soon flood itself. The main character then says that there are no red flowers there, and then asks just out of curiosity, what will Rosa do when she wins? The girl replies that the victory itself is important to her, and she can worry about the rest later. Arden's family will be under her protection, and beyond that, she has no plans yet. The protagonist then asks if she really has no plans. The girl replies that she hasn't, and that's it. Apple is silent for a moment, and the brunette just moves forward. The main character then tells the girl to wait for her, and then thinks what kind of flower it is that turns its head to the south at noon and glows at its peak. The main character also claims that if Rose is right and the other girls are afraid to get their hands dirty, then the maids will do all the dirty work for them. And if she were a judge, she would hide it where no one would get it, after which she says, so that Rose would think about this, and what would be the beauty of this selection if all the work for the candidates would be done by their maids? The girl also claims that if they really want to prove their worth, they must find everything themselves. And the brunette asks where the girl thinks they hid the feather. The main character then replies that she doesn't know, but then she sees some flower. He also tells Rose to look. However, when she reaches for the flower, she realizes she can't reach it. And she also says that there must be a stem coming out from the other side, after which she asserts, "What will look from there, therefore, let the lady wait," and the girl says that it is good, but let her just do it faster. The main character then goes to the flower and thinks that if it is him, then they must have done it on purpose, so that short ladies could not reach it. When the main character realizes that she has found it and thinks that she can get it, well, at that very moment, several more people approach her from behind, and then they come closer to her. They cover her mouth, and the girl is shocked, wondering what's going on. Then, water from a bucket is poured on her. The main character opens her eyes and thinks what happened because she was looking for feathers. But then someone addresses her as a squirrel and says it's time to wake up. The main character is then shocked to think that this is what it means to see in front of her a lady with red hair and those who support her. And she also understands that this is Lady Peneltia, after which she rises from her seat. And he screams out what the girl is allowing herself to do, but at that very moment the young lady's hands are twisted behind her back. And Apple claims that she sees that the woman has a passion for hitting little girls. Kana just approaches her and claims that last time the maid couldn't even say a word, but now she only has to look at her. The blonde then asks what she allows herself to do in the sacred garden. And the lady with red hair asks what she thinks and whether simple treasure hunts are too boring. So she asks if the girl thinks so they decide to play a little. Kana ties the main character's hands and claims that it will be fun and asks if she thinks so. Apple only tells the girl not to drag her into these games, but the woman claims that she doesn't need to do anything because they are the ones who will play, and this is also a kind of test. Apple, she claims that she doesn't know what they want to achieve with this, but doesn't it seem to them that they should first find out her opinion? However, the girls only laugh after this, and the woman with red hair says that the young lady is right. But she's a good girl, so she doesn't need permission. Apple asks why. And Kana asks who is interested in the opinion of some servant, after which she says that enough talk, everyone has been waiting for them for so long. So let the young lady entertain her, and then the woman kicks her, and also claims that they can start. Then he says they'll start hunting squirrels. Rose begins to sense something is wrong and asks what happened. Well, when she looks around the corner, she sees that the young lady is no longer there and only bent grass remains. Rose then gets angry and claims that she shouldn't have let this girl go alone. The maids then look for feathers for their mistresses, and Rose only goes with a mirror and swears, and also understands. It may be that the image of the rose is too heavily charged with a magical barrier, but this is just an excuse. And this is exactly what she looked like at 14 years old, but it's too risky to take off the ring now, since those who can use magic in the country are only the royal family and a select few. Rosa also clenches her teeth and pronounces Kana Peneltia's name. She also understands that she must first find her coalition. After all, if she follows one of them, she will be able to find Apple. But she hardly knows them by sight. Well, none of them are there. Then she still hears the bell, and the girl understands that this is at least a hint and a withered flower. And the hand reaching for this flower signifies that this flower turns its head south at midday. The girl also understands that now is not the time to think about feathers. After all, she needs to find Apple, but she still doesn't understand which direction she should go. At this time, someone addresses Rose, and the girl is a little surprised. It turns out to be Iris, and she asks where her maids are. The brunette replies that she sent them to look for Ms. Apple, and the blonde claims she heard the girl was missing. The brunette asks how she found out, since she didn't tell her about it. And Iris claims that the young lady was not next to her, so she assumed that something had happened to her. The brunette then asks if the girl thought about it without asking her, and the blonde replies that she didn't have time for that. Yes, and Bite scores the men. Besides, she is also responsible for this incident because Lady Peneltia tracked down Ms. Apple instead of confronting them face to face, and she provokes them. The brunette then claims that she knows and understands that Kana Peneltia used such a dirty trick. Although the garden has always been like this, and candidates for princesses are all noble maidens. And also, at first glance, everyone is on equal terms and punishment will go to those who harm others. So instead of threatening the candidate directly, they take their anger out on their mates. But this is what they expected. From a very early age, the punishments they deserved were eventually paid for by others. And the garden is a vicious circle. And in the end, only the survivors remain. The brunette insists that in real life, things are even worse. Iris, meanwhile, extends her hand to the girl, and he claims that he wants to help her, after which he hands her a pen and claims that he will support her. And to Miss Apple, she also swears on the honor of the Larare family. Rose asks if that's the purpose of today's competition, and he claims that the maids must have worked hard to find him. After which the girl raises her hand to this pen, but still squeezes it and thinks about the change coin. And she realizes it was stupid to think that way. The girl also realizes that she can't just take it. And to exchange Apple for someone else, she now claims that she has no doubt about Iris's friendliness. But he still refuses. The blonde then turns to Killian, a little worried, but the young man simply takes off his ring and asserts that this has been his area of responsibility from the very beginning. The lady with red hair asks at this time if everyone remembers the rules, because as soon as they catch the girl, they should immediately release her so that everyone can have fun. The main character then asks in shock what she just said, and Kana claims that no one cares what the hot squirrel is mumbling there. The other girls just smirk after this, and the woman claims that they need proof that they caught her, so let them bring her some of her clothes. But only one thing should remain for others, after which the woman asks if they understand. The main character understands that she is making fun of her, and the others are just laughing. But isn't there anyone in this crowd who can help her? Apple thinks that's too cruel. The woman claims that whoever manages to remove the most clothes from her by the end of the ceremony will get whatever they want, and she swears on the name of her family. For example, they could get a share of the Penaltia family's business, or a monopoly on the spice market. Apple understands that they are hunting her out of nothing just for fun, and this is absurd. At this time, the woman pulls a scarf over the girl's eyes and states that it is time to release the prey from the labyrinth. The main character, meanwhile, is in shock, wondering where the rose is, and she realizes she's terrified, but she still understands that it's time to think about the mistress, as she's not there, and she has to figure something out on her own. And she also needs to do something, after which she turns to Kana, and the other girls heard this and were only indignant. And they also ask how she dares to address a noble lady without formality. And it's so rude. The lady with red hair at this time asks if the girl just addressed her by name. And the young lady understands that she must stall for time until no one finds her, and the woman will listen to her if she can offer her something in return. That's why she screams that she will play too and thinks that if only it works. And he also says that she will participate if the woman promises her something for winning, because then she will run away from them faster. A little while later, one of the women asks where the girl is hiding. But that's not bad for a girl with her eyes closed. One of them claims that she saw a young lady in that direction and that she already has 2 buttons. The main character then thinks that these steps are too close, and she hopes that someone will help her soon. The young lady also recalls how the red-haired woman asked her if she would try to escape and claimed that if she could escape the labyrinth before the hunt ended, then she would be the winner. Apple understands that it is already difficult to navigate this place, and also to think about how I can avoid being blindfolded at this time. One of Kana's minions claims to have found the girl. After which she button, and the main character asks if it's still not enough for them, and if they should stop already. The girl then says that the young lady doesn't even look scared. But when they are scared, it's much more fun to play. The blonde replies that at first she was scared, but only then does she become afraid, when you don't know what will happen next. But she knows what they are going to do to her, so she wonders what she has to be afraid of. But then one of the girls hits the maid and claims that this curse still doesn't understand her place. But didn't Rose Arden teach her manners? And, although there's nothing surprising in that they, a legitimate child from a provincial family, don't even know how to treat a maid. The main character then says that they shouldn't dare touch Rose. One of the ladies claims that the girl is simply trying to cash in on the name Larare. The main character then screams that the girl is her sister, so they shouldn't even dare mention her. But then the young lady realizes that she will most likely be hit now, after which she closes her eyes. However, the girl does not feel anything, and thinks that this is strange because she was prepared for them to delete her, but nothing is heard, and the young lady thinks what is happening. And also, did someone really come to the rescue? But the main character still thinks who it was. But she is scared, and the girl is wondering if they can't leave her alone. The main character also asks them to just let her go once, but at the same moment, someone picks her up in his arms, and the girl wonders if this person has come to save her. The main character also realizes that he has broad shoulders and strong arms, after which he wonders if this is Lady Mary. The girl begins to grope the guy. Then she puts her arms around him, which makes him a little surprised, and the main character reaches for her bandage. And she asks what happened and whether she got it too, but at that very moment, the young man grabs her hand, and Apple asks if this man doesn't want her to see. She also wonders why Mary is silent, and whether she got hurt while dealing with the other girls. The young lady then states that it is fine, and she will not look but asks her to tell Mrs. Larrere so that she can help. The young man then places the young lady on the floor and touches her hand. He then writes on it words of endless prosperity and blessings. The young lady then, in shock, thinks what this means and asks what happened. But when the girl takes off her blindfold, he is shocked and wonders where she is now. And also, where did the maid go? The main character also claims that she must find a way out of the labyrinth. So then someone turns to Apple and asks what she's doing there. It turns out to be Rose. A little while later, the woman with red hair says what a pity it is and asks if they think so. But a quarrel between maids on such a significant day, when the welcoming ceremony is taking place, is a pitiful sight, and if rumors spread, it would be a great shame. Rose then asks if this is really a quarrel between the maids, but he understands that this woman had carefully planned everything, and none of Peneltia's maids were involved. However, the girl turns to the blonde and asks if she thinks the same. Kana then asks what the girl means, and also whether she really thinks that one of the candidates is to blame for what happened. The protagonist then turns to Erosion and claims she's fine, and the lady with red hair claims that the owner always keeps an eye on his trinkets. But her maid must have been at a disadvantage, facing so many servants, and she's such a poor thing. Rose just wonders if she doesn't feel any sympathy at all. After which they exchange glances, and the main character is examined. This only scares her and also understands that a verdict has been given. That the incident that disrupted the welcome ceremony competition and also served as the start of the fight is classified as point 2 of illegal actions. Thus, the decision taken by 6 of the 7 judges was then announced. Despite the guilt of both parties due to the difference in damages incurred according to the rules of liability for those areas committed by their maids, candidate Selena Evant, along with candidate Lucia Taylor and candidate Anne Habras, have been expelled from the garden. In addition, candidate Rose Arden has one of her feathers confiscated as punishment. The main character realizes that she hasn't found a single feather and wonders if this means she will be expelled to the market, and then turns to them and asks why Lady Peneltia will not be punished. However, the man claims that Miss Peneltia's maids were not involved in the conflict, after which he asks Mistress Arden to provide a quill. Rose then assumes Lady Larrere had one. She considers whether she should bow her head in obedience or boldly challenge the pantheon. The man turns to Mistress Arden, and the main character thinks where the girl is looking, after which she sees a glass and understands. What is this flower that glows scarlet at its peak? The girl also understands that it might seem to others as if she doubts the superiority of Duchess Pantheon. However, if they give up the feather, Rose will be expelled. The red-haired lady just laughs, and he says not to put pressure on the girl because she doesn't have any feathers at all and they only found one. But then the main character passes by her, and the woman is a little surprised, and someone says that girls are not allowed to go up there, but the young lady just pushes the guy away and then takes a glass of wine in her hands, and he pours it on Kenna. The woman is a little surprised, and a feather also falls out of the glass. Apple claims she's won, and that's her wish. Then she asks the woman what it is, after which the blonde tells her to just try to humiliate someone again. The maids immediately turn to the mistress and ask if she is okay. and the woman then smirks. He also claims that this girl was the first who dared to throw wine at her. The maids then run up to the mistress and ask if everything is in order, but she might even catch a cold. At this time, the main character leans towards the feather and says that the main thing is not to forget it, after which she is about to pick it up. Well, then Rose stops her, and the young lady wonders why. The brunette only says it's her feather, and let them be so kind. The other aristocrats then look at all this with a little surprise, and the Duchess looks at them completely coldly. Rose then tells Apple they can leave. A little while later, they're already in the room. Rose tells the girl to put on these pajamas because they're the only ones she'll wear in her wardrobe. Believe me, she's smaller than Apple. The main character then thanks Rose, and the brunette asks the girl if it's her imagination, that she's acting too comfortable there. The main character then asks what difference it makes since they're one family. And the brunette claims that Lorraire offered to join forces with her, and she is thinking of accepting her offer. The main character then asks if this is true, and the girl replies that she decided that she should change tactics. And first and foremost, we need to take care of Peneltia. The young lady then sits down next to her mistress. He also claims that he hates this woman. Apple also leans against the bed and claims that she is sure of it, that the lady will think everything through carefully, and she can't wait to see it. However, Rose then says that the girl must return to the Arden estate. The main character then asks what she is talking about, and that they just arrived. However, the brunette claims that she knew from the very beginning that something like this would happen to the young lady. Apple asks what she's talking about, and the girl replies that in the garden, the maids represent their masters, and they run around them doing dirty work and also bear punishment. So she brought the girl with her, and the young lady looked like the perfect puppet, with her caring and simple-minded soul. But because of her, the young lady suffered. And Rose claims that it is her fault, and she also tries to say that Apple doesn't need me there anymore, so let her come back. The girl also claims to buy her train tickets. Or the girl might hate her, because she doesn't care. However, the main character then grabs the girl by the shoulder. He also asks if this is all out of pity for her. The brunette is silent for a moment after that, and the main character looks at her confidently. Then she asks if it was Rose who hit her, or maybe she told them to do it, and also wanted it to happen to her from the very beginning. The brunette then replies that no, and the main character asks why the girl then feels sorry for her. And he also asks if she really feels sorry for her just like that. Well, if that's the case, then let her feel sorry for her health, and he will simply ask her for forgiveness, and from that moment on, he will be kinder. And right now she has nothing to apologize for. So the girl could just be kinder. The brunette remains silent after this, and then repeats the words about being kinder. But she asks how. The main character replies that, firstly, the girl should treat her with respect, and not just call her big sister, but treat her like a sister. However, the girl replies that she doesn't want to, and the main character asks how she then wants to address her. The girl replies that she treats him like a princess. The young lady is then shocked by these words, and the brunette says she'll think about it. A little while later, the main character approaches some maids and asks if classes are over yet. The girls reply no, and the young lady is earlier than usual, but just in time, after which they tell the young lady to look. And when the main character looks out the window, and they also see Rose there, who claims that there is no point in even refuting this theory, after which they ask to allow her to explain it. Apple realizes she's been so busy running errands alone that she hasn't even had time to pay attention to her studies. Meanwhile, the girl insists they should consider their religious orientation. The young lady is rooting for her mistress and thinking how cool she is. Meanwhile, the other maids insist it's that girl again, and lately she's been turning the whole garden upside down. Another lady says she feels sorry for Lady Rose's interlocutor. The main character then realizes that the other maids have already heard about her mistress, and she doesn't know why, but she is very proud of her. The blonde also claims that it's only because she takes the pen every time she comes to class, and the other girl says that it's true. One of the girls claims that she wouldn't be surprised even if the crown prince himself had already heard about her. Apple then says how great it is and she needs to work even harder to support Rose. One of the maids then says that in any case, in 2 weeks there will be a sapphire night ball, and the other ladies are all busy looking for a gentleman. She doesn't even know what Mrs. Carroll will do. The main character then asks what kind of ball it is, and the girl wonders if the young lady has never heard of it, since it is the most important event in the garden. It is also a night when you can enjoy dancing with your partner, and when ladies and gentlemen can express their feelings in the light of the blue moon. They say that even a mysterious prince can drop by the ball, and the main character is delighted. And she asks if the prince himself will really be there. At that moment, someone approaches her from behind and asks why the girl is so happy. The main character then asks in shock if it really is Rose, and then corrects herself and claims that she meant to say mistress. The girl also asks if she has heard about the Sapphire Night Ball, and if there will be a beautiful moon, a magical atmosphere, and a chance to meet a prince. However, the brunette insists that she will not go, and the main character asks in shock, what was she talking about? A little while later, they were already walking further down the corridor. The main character then recalled how the girl had said she wouldn't go. And she also understands that everyone is nervous before an event as extravagant as the Sapphire Night Ball. There will be magical moonlight and classical music there, and people wanting to get to know each other better. And also noble maidens walking in the garden in the hope of meeting a prince. Or the crown prince, shrouded in mystery, which could appear at any moment. Ladies and their maids, as well as even the residents of the capital, eagerly await this night. So the girl thinks why Rose doesn't want to participate, and this may be her only chance to ever attend the ball. The brunette turns to the young lady and asks what happened. The main character runs closer and says it's nothing. And he also wonders why the prince never showed himself in public, since we are talking about choosing a bride for him. And she would be very curious, and she would also definitely run over to take a quick look. The brunette replies that maybe he's not that interested in all this, but the girl wonders if Rose doesn't want to know more about him, since she thought she was planning to become crown princess. However, the girl claims that he may have his own reasons for keeping everything a secret, and the more curious the girl is, the greater her disappointment will be when she realizes that he is not who she imagined. The main character then claims that Bella told her that during the last garden, His Majesty honored the ball with his presence as the crown prince, and she's sure he had someone in mind for her back then. It's so romantic. Rose insists it's all just empty gossip, fueled by the imaginations of ordinary people, and she doesn't know for sure. However, the main character claims that she is sure that Mr. Lorer will also be there, and she is even interested in who will become his partner. The brunette then asks why the young lady is so interesting, and the answer is obvious. The main character then asks the girl if she knows who he's bringing, and if she really invited him. Rose replies that he's the most predictable person on Earth, and the young lady claims that she didn't know about it, after which Rose says what a fool she is. Of course, the guy will come with Lady Lorer, and it is obvious that he will accompany his sister. Well, the main character says that this is true, but she understands that it was quite predictable, and the brunette claims that even if the girl were not a candidate, he would still accompany her in 80% of cases, regardless of what the event is. The young lady then says that she understands, and the brunette claims that she looks overly interested. Although they are not even going to this ball, their main character asks if it is true that they are not going, and also wonders why. The young lady also claims that she is Lady Rose's maid, and asks how she could forget, but the brunette only asks if she hasn't already said so. And over the next few days, she will be asking for long-term travel, and it is also unlikely that she will be able to return on time. And of course, she is also sorry that the evening will not be illuminated by her unearthly beauty. The young lady then asks where the mistress is going and asserts that she will also go with her. However, the girl replies that no, and she'll go alone. The main character then asks when she's leaving, and the young lady replies that tomorrow, after which she leaves the main character alone. However, Apple immediately bursts into the room and screams, asking what she is talking about and what is about her. Rose replies that the girl will be able to take care of herself while she is away, and the main character cries out that it is easy for her to say. After which, she claims that she is not even allowed to walk around the palace alone and cannot visit Charlotte because she is a simple servant. And in general, she also feels uncomfortable with the other maids because everyone around will be looking at her. Rose then asks what if this is a little vacation for her until she gets back. She also claims that, fortunately, she prepared a permit for the girl and she can walk around the capital. The main character then asks in shock if she will really be given a walk around the capital, after which she embraces her mistress and thanks her heartily. She also says she will ask Lady Mary. After all, maybe she will have free time, and the brunette claims that the girl should ask right now so that Iris has time to give her permission. The main character then asks if she can really do this, to which her mistress replies that yes, after which the young lady immediately runs away, thanking her again as soon as the girl leaves the room. Then the girl takes off her ring and transforms. She also remembers how the young lady claimed her innocence when she was suspected of stealing an invitation, and how she almost lost her life when she fell down the stairs. And also when the lady with red hair wanted to hit her, and then the last events when the main character. She asked if they couldn't leave her alone and asked them to let her go just once. The young man then realizes that he does not want to see the girl suffer again because of him, after which he speaks of endless prosperity and blessings. At this time, the main character knocks on the door of the room and asks Mrs. Lorraire for goodbye, and also claims that it is Apple, the servant of Mrs. Rose Arden. The young lady also thinks whether Marie will open the door again, and also understands that she will immediately ask her before Togo. As Lady Lorraire gives her permission, the girl then sees someone's hand opening the door, and she realizes that it is Mary, because she can be immediately recognized by her large hands, and the girl grabs this hand. He also claims that she will have a vacation, and if she doesn't mind, he will take her for a walk around the capital. The young man standing in front of her claims that he would be happy to, but the main character, seeing who it is embarrassed. And when the guy keeps smiling, the girl falls off her feet. A little while later, she comes to her senses, and she also asks where she is, and the young man only asks if she is woken up. He also claims that this is the Lorraire estate, or that only his family and servants live there, and the views there are simply enchanting. Although the main duchy is located in the province, they also maintain an estate in the capital. The guy also claims he's already told her everything, but she apparently doesn't remember. The young woman then asks him in shock what he's talking about, and realizes she doesn't remember anything at all. The guy then claims that he is accompanying her today and that they haven't gotten there yet. The young lady had been making conversation well, but now she must be tired. The main character then wonders if this tour of the Duke's estate is really just the two of them, accompanied by Mr. Sid. The young lady also understands that even though she is on vacation, Rose might not like it, and she needs to go back. That's why now the girl asks for forgiveness and claims that she knows how busy the guy is every day. The young man then asks what the young lady is suddenly getting at, and the girl answers that from there she can admire the views of the capital alone. However, the guy claims that this is nonsense, and he promised to accompany her today so that he wouldn't leave anywhere until the end of the trip. Well, the young lady then screams that everything is really fine with her and he doesn't need to make his life so difficult. But after this, the guy only sadly asks if the young lady doesn't like him, after which the girl screams that everything is completely wrong. And the young man smiles and says what a joy it is, after which they move on. And when the young lady gets out of the carriage, she realizes that for some reason she couldn't even go back. After this, they enter the estate and are greeted by servants. The main character thinks that this is already too much, but then she understands that what difference does it make? After all, she is a guest, and she has nothing to be afraid of at all. The guy then turns to the young lady and tells her to make herself at home, to which the girl agrees. After which he looks at one of the photos and understands that it must be from childhood, and also wonders if it is really him and Lady Iris. But when they were children, they were even cuter. The guy then thanks the young lady and also claims that this gold is only for paintings and photographs. And there are those that no longer have a place on the wall. Apple says it would be interested in seeing other photos as well. She also asks if the guy will allow it, after which he replies that, of course, and then the young lady goes into one of the rooms. And he also understands that there are images of completely different people, different eras, and different places. And there's not a single photo of Rosa there. The young lady also wonders if this is because she's an illegitimate child. and the girl is sure that Rose was beautiful since childhood, and she is very sorry that she will not be able to see this. At this time, the guy turns to the young lady and claims that the Rose did not live there, and therefore, they do not have a photograph of it. The guy also claims that it seemed to him that the girl would like to know this, and her people answer that yes, and it's not that she was curious. She suddenly decides to change the subject and points to one of the paintings and asks what it is. The guy replies that this is a photo of the last Sapphire Night Ball, and it was taken about 24 years ago. Apple claims that this must be a photo of the Duke. The guy replies that no, and his father only took the photo because it was his hobby. He then anonymously sent the photo to a newspaper, and the next day, it was front-page news in every newspaper in the kingdom. To commemorate this achievement, he reproduced the image on a massive scale, and he framed it. The main character asks, "What about anatomy?" and also asks who the people in the photo are. Sid replies that His Majesty was the crown prince at the time, and Lady Amel Pantheon, who was a candidate at the time. It was she who became the next crown princess, and the main character then realizes that this is their late queen. At this time, the young man turns to the girl and claims that he will show her the other rooms. And when the main character heads to other rooms, she still turns around to look at this photograph. A little while later, they are already entering the ballroom, and she also wonders if it is because she spent the whole day with this guy. Well, she finally feels more relaxed with Mr. Sid. The guy then extends his hand, and he claims that since the girl will not be present at the ball, he is obliged to take advantage of this chance. The main character then smiles and claims that she has never danced with someone her age before, so she might be a little awkward. And the guy claims that then she teaches her, and the young lady says that his speeches are so pleasant to listen to. The main character also understands that it would be rude to tell him that he knows how to charm. The guy claims that he learned a lot from his sister, and the main character asks why he brought her there. The young man replies that he is just trying to demonstrate his interest, and the main character wondered whether he wanted to show interest in her or in Mrs. Rose. The guy then kisses the young lady's hand and claims that now there is only her in front of him. The prince then approaches the bed where his double lies, wearing a mask. He also realizes that the mask has come in very handy, after which the young man takes off this mask, and the double begins to dissipate, and the young man asserts that it is the man whose face must be hidden, after which he tells Leto to come out. Then a bird starts to appear in the air, and he claims that he cannot convey Mr. Steele's orders. The guy then wonders if this is really about Apple's status, and also wonders what the reason is. The bird replies that Steele's consciousness is divided into many threads between different people, and there is a risk that a person connected to Steele's consciousness may also receive the message if he transmits it. The prince then asks if the boy can't control it, and the bird replies that the master's power is unstable, and the risk is too high. The guy then realizes that a large surge in his mana also matters. He also tells the bird to forget about Steele for now, and that he will return him as soon as this is all over. The bird then says that he obeys, and the guy claims that in this case, Leto can replace Steele. The bird gets angry after this, but it still bows and then dissolves into thin air, and the guy claims that he is interested in how many days he will spend with you this time, and the only way to restore mana is to fall into oblivion. The young man also understands that he feels tired, but cannot fall asleep, after which he closes his eyes and understands that he only needs to do this. Then the young man suddenly opens his eyes and someone addresses him and speaks that his grace will have to come to terms with everything. The whole farewell is the lot of each of them. She's also sure her sister would want the boy to understand everything. The young man was shocked, and he said that he understood and would do as Mom said. A little while later, the Duke's children were already walking through the labyrinth, and the young lady asked where the exit was, but the boy insisted that everything there looked the same. After which everyone asked him with tears in their eyes if they were really lost. However, the blonde told the guy not to be afraid because she was nearby. Then they turned one of the corners and saw someone. It turned out to be the prince. However, the Duke's children did not know this and wondered if he was alone in such a place. After this, the guy only told them to come closer, after which the children did so. And the young man, after a short silence, asserted that they had not fallen into eternal sleep and that they were still alive. Even after looking at his face, it meant his aunt had lied to him. Sid was only scared after that. The prince told the boy not to be afraid, because he wouldn't harm him. He also insisted that if they promised to be his friends from now on, he would be fine. Then he would lead them out of the labyrinth. The girl then asked if it was true, and the guy replied that, of course, and he gave his word. However, let them not tell anyone that they saw his face. A little while later, the girl asked His Majesty, "Why does he always hide his face from others?" To which the guy replied that he doesn't know. They also say that anyone who sees his face will fall into eternal sleep, so he has no choice. The girl then wondered if someone really had fallen into eternal sleep just by looking at him. Now the young man opens his eyes and realizes that he had another nightmare because he didn't take the medicine that blocks them, or because there is no one around. The guy also understands that something in his thoughts lately is absolutely meaningless, and it is very stupid. After all, he'd been alone for 20 years, and a month with Apple couldn't change him. The young man also places his hand next to himself, and he asks if the top of her head reached his shoulders. Well, the girl must be enjoying life while he is not around. Or maybe she's going crazy with boredom, because he won't recognize her, and the girl won't be able to attend the ball anyway. Well, then the young man is silent for a moment and realizes that when he thinks about Apple, his heart finds no peace, and he also misses her. At this time, the main character is walking down the corridor and realizes that she has already used up all her exit permits, and she is also interested in how Rosa is doing, since she hasn't heard anything about her at all. The main character also thinks she's sure this girl is doing well. Then she opens the door to one of the rooms and apologizes. The lady with green hair then tells the girl to go ahead because she was just waiting for her. And the main character says what a cute dress she has, and she looks just like a forest nymph. Then the main character helps with the decorations and claims that when she first heard about the Sapphire Night, she thought that only the moon would have a blue tint. Charlotte claims that she thought so too, but the moon created by magic is something special. The young lady then says that Charlotte has very outstanding curves, and what a pity that all this is hidden by lace. The girl then gets indignant and says that she didn't answer at all. It was she who asked for the dress to be made like that, and she doesn't like being naked at all. The girl also asks if she looks strange, and the main character at the same moment screams that no, and she is amazing. The other maid then asks the mistress to remain still, and states that she will put on makeup. The main character then asks who her companion is. The maid claims that the mistress didn't even say a word to them, and they think that she secretly met someone in the library, but they don't even guess who it could be. Apple then claims she hopes it's not some weirdo and screams, so Charlotte would just tell her if something happens, because she will do everything to make him regret it. One of the maids then turns to Apple and tells her to come down to the kitchen when the ball begins. Another also insists that a couple more maids would be enough for Mistress Charlotte. And they decided to throw a small party since they had nothing else to do, and the girl suggested having fun in this moonlight. Her colleague then asks if the young lady can drink, and she is the same age as Mrs. Charlotte. The main character then says that she is no longer there and that today she turned 20 years old. The maid immediately congratulates her, and the lady with green hair then asks in shock if it is really the girl's birthday today. She also claims in shock that she didn't know that today was her birthday. And he also wonders why the girl didn't say anything, because there must have been her reasons for this, and probably she didn't look trustworthy and he should have asked. The main character then claims that she only just now thought about it, but everything was so restless there. That's why she didn't even have a chance to tell her, and the main character apologizes, and Charlotte asks what she should do since she doesn't even have a gift. And she asks if she can get something for the young lady now. But she cries out that no way, because the ball is starting very soon. And the lady with green hair then tells Lady Arden to bring the best dress from her wardrobe. The maid is then a little surprised and asks her mistress for forgiveness, and Charlotte asserts that, of course, she would never give away a ready-made dress from her wardrobe. Well, since she doesn't have time to sew a new one, then let it be like this, because she can't afford Apple. Spend your birthday in a maid's uniform. and they are about the same age, so if this dress is hemmed a little, it should fit. The main character then turns to Charlotte, a little surprised, and tells the maids to do everything for Togo, so that Apple becomes the most beautiful lady today. The two then agree and take the young lady away. And the main character claims that she's not even going to the ball and wonders what all this is about. But the girl claims that today is her birthday and she is a star. Yes, and mad. Besides, people can't dress up every day. The maid turns to the mistress and says it's time for them to go. After which Charlotte says that she is already leaving, so she asks Apple not to give up her care for her sake. After which she also hands the girl something and claims that it should suit her, and then leaves completely. One of the maids then says that their mistress is such a mistress, and what does she think they will do together? Another maid claims that she doesn't even know, and maybe they should listen to her and make Apple the most beautiful girl in the world. After which they immediately tell the young lady to undress, and one maid asks another if the girl will fit without a corset. A little while later, the main character is already dressed in a beautiful dress. The main character, also asking if they think it's okay to sing, still refuses to go to the ball. One of them insists that everything will be fine if she stays away from the ballroom, and they throw her a party in the kitchen. The young lady then can't help but smile, but then claims that she needs to run somewhere first. The maid then asks if she really needs to go right now, and where she needs to go. The young lady tells them to go ahead, as she'll be there soon. Apple. Then she goes into the room and takes the shoes out of the box and realizes that her mother sent her a gift from home. And he came all this way, so she can't just leave him. The girl puts on these shoes, after which he claims that he also looks like a noble maiden who goes to a ball in a beautiful dress. The young lady also understands that she needs to hurry because everyone is probably waiting for her. When she heads up the stairs, she realizes that she is late, and then she sees someone. The main character then realizes that this thing is Charlotte and sees a guy next to her. However, she then catches his gaze and immediately hides. The guy had claimed a while ago that he didn't know what this place was. He also asks if the lady really decided to deceive him. The girl then cries out that everything is wrong and she's just... I wanted to invite him, but the guy claims that he cannot come to terms with this situation and others should not see him. Well, then the young man told her to wait a minute and also claimed that he was being eavesdropped on, after which he looked at the main character. Now the young lady is hiding around the corner and wondering if he just saw her and what she should do. After all, what happens if he goes up there? Then someone covers the young lady's mouth and drags her back. The young man then tells the girl to be quieter, and the main character wonders if he really helped her. The guy then says how smart she is, and the young lady then asks who he is. She also sees a mask on the guy's face and thinks it's pretty weird and asks if he's a ghost. The young man replies that no, and he's not a ghost, so she has nothing to fear. He also asks if there's a ball today in honor of the crown prince and the candidates. He also asks why she's there all alone. The girl replies that she doesn't have a partner, but she already has plans, so everything is fine. But the girl also says she sees him as the epitome of politeness, and the guy says it wouldn't hurt her to give up some manners either. The young man also asks who he has planned to meet and if there is anything more important than today's ball. The main character thinks what he is talking about and also asks why he is so interested. The guy just laughs and claims it's just a joke. The young lady then claims it's her birthday, and the guy says that's why she's so beautiful, and then he starts using magic. The main character is a little surprised, but then the light from the magic blinds her, and the girl closes her eyes. And when he opens it, he sees his double standing before him. The young lady, shocked, immediately asks if the guy is really a wizard, and he just asks where the meeting should take place, to which the girl replies that it's in the kitchen, and also thinks that this is strange and why she answers any of his questions. The guy then sends the double to the kitchen and says that the girl is now completely free. Apple asks what he's doing, but the young man replies that she's in danger. and she can't meet with this gentleman now and needs to find a safer place. Apple claims that even though he says so, he still looks much more suspicious than he does. The guy then says that he doesn't even know how to convince her and to be simpler with Rose. The main character asks what he just said, and the young man replies that nothing. The girl then asks if he is not going to the ball, and if so, what is he doing there? Well, the guy just extends his hand and claims that he will tell if she goes with him. The young lady then extends her hand, but still doesn't trust the guy very much. And he just opens the door and claims that the girl is safe with him, and he gives his word. The main character then takes the young man by the hand, after which they enter what seems to be space itself. And the young lady wonders if this place was really created by magic. But it is fascinating, and the girl is interested in where she is, and the girl does not think that she was there even on errands. At this time, the guy puts on his shoes, and the main character, looking at this, asks where he got these shoes from and wonders if he was really barefoot before. At this time, the young man is just putting on a jacket and asks if the girl knows how to tie a tie. The main character replies that yes, but wonders if he is also made of magic, because that is very unusual. And the young man replies that no, and he left it in the room, after which he approaches the young lady. And the girl begins to tie her tie but realizes that the guy's face is too close, but luckily he is wearing a mask. Then the young lady ties this tie, and the young man states that she is so tiny and asks if she is cold. Apple replies that she is just a little shorter than him, and that this is normal because she is still a woman. She finishes tying his tie and claims that she is fine, so he shouldn't worry. Well, she still wonders why he is dressed so lightly, because it looks like he got there in a hurry. The young man replies that he just woke up, and the young lady asks if he sleeps with the mask on. And the guy replies that he should wear it outside the restroom, after which he asks whether he should take off this mask. When the young lady sees the young man's face, she's a little surprised. He claims that as soon as they pass through the door, he cast an invisibility spell, and now no one will be able to see them. The main character realizes that she has never met anyone so beautiful. She doesn't understand why he seems so familiar to her. The guy then suggests the young lady look down and asks if it doesn't look beautiful. The main character looks at the city below her and wonders if they are really in the air now. But she can't believe that this is a dream. Well, then the girl realizes that she feels cold, which means she is not sleeping, and wonders what will happen if they fall, because she is a little scared. The young man claims that he is the greatest magician in the entire kingdom, so she should trust him. But Apple is only interested in who he is, and the young man asks if she shouldn't introduce herself first. Then the main character claims her name is Apple. The guy asks if that's true, but she claims that this is not her full name, after which she calls her April Arden. The main character then goes into shock and screams out how he knows her name, and the young man calls her April again. This nearly drives the girl crazy and screams for him to stop. The young man replies that he won't call her that if she dances with him. The main character is silent for a while, but when the guy calls her by name again, she interrupts him and screams that she agrees, so he should stop already. After this, they begin to dance together, and with the help of magic, the young man also creates music. Apple, looking at this, is surprised and asks if all this is magic. But it's simply incredible. After this, the guy tells the girl to look at him too. The main character thinks this is strange. After all, his face seems so familiar, but she still wonders why he is so handsome, and whether she really fell in love with him at first sight. Apple also claims that she told him her name, so he should tell her his. The young man pulls the girl closer to him, kisses her on the forehead, and claims that his name is Killian. The main character is then a little surprised and asks if his name is Killian, and the guy replies that yes, and he can't say more, otherwise he'll have to erase her memory. Apple then thinks how she can still behave like this with him, but it would be stupid to address him as you again. Then the young lady thinks who cares, and also wonders why he revealed his face to her. The guy apologizes, but claims that he can't tell her more, and the girl says that it's not fair. And then the young man distances himself a little from her and claims that he can tell her about others, and that she wants to know a lot. Then the guy casts a spell on another door, and when he approaches it, he claims that the girl must find out everything before she returns. The girl then thinks about what she wants to know, after which she remembers that stranger who was looking at her angrily. and he claims that he wants to know about that young man with Charlotte, and also wonders if the guy knows who he is. The young man replies that it is Benjamin de Alvin Knox. The young lady is then a little surprised by the name, and the guy claims that this is the half-brother of His Highness the Crown Prince, and the illegitimate child of His Majesty the King. Apple asks what he means. And in the entire kingdom, there's only one crown prince. The boy replies that, of course, people will never know this, because it's a state secret and mustn't be revealed. And the main character wonders if Charlotte knows about this, and also ponders what she should do and how to explain all this to her. The young man claims that all the information guilds are aware of this, but they risk becoming traitors to the king if they reveal this secret to the people. And the girl should be grateful that he didn't let her meet this guy. Apple says that, even she doesn't think that's a good idea. Killian argues that if Charlotte is already involved, she'll need to intervene, and the protagonist says he's right. And the young man claims that then she knows better about it, after which the young lady understands that, if you think about it like that. Yes, she was confused and couldn't even thank him properly, after which she thanks the young man for saving her then. But she still claims that she has one more question, or the girl is wondering how he found out that she is in beta. The guy then wants to answer, but suddenly falls silent and then claims that he doesn't know. And that's enough secrets for today. The young lady then realizes that he even revealed a state secret to her, but now he can't confess. She also understands that this door leads to Rose's chambers. She is even interested in how the girl is doing. And the young lady also thinks that this is really strange, because she has never met this guy in her life. But for some reason he seems so familiar to her. The young man strokes her head and tells her it's time to say goodbye. Then he starts to say some words, but then stops and is silent for a while. The main character asks what happened and also whether he was going to use magic. But the young man removes his hand and replies that no, and everything is fine, because in the end nothing lasts forever. The boy then kisses the girl on the forehead and wishes her sweet dreams. He then leaves the room, leaving the young lady alone. The main character then remains a little embarrassed and silent, but then immediately turns to the door and opens it. But she sees that behind it there is simply a corridor. After which she claims to have had a magical dream. The young lady realizes that snow crows are the symbol of the Nox kingdom, which is also called the Golden Mages. They are born with immense reserves of mana, and at 20 years of age it reaches its peak. Since it was not given to other people, magic became the prerogative of the kingdom, and only a select few can become mages. Their bodies are branded with the mark of endless prosperity and blessing. Thanks to this brand, they draw mana from the snow ravens and use magic. The woman also claimed to the boy that the queen accepted immersion in eternal sleep with dignity. Since his lordship's birth, he must never remove the mask again. The young man then took the mask from his hands, and the woman only claimed that no one should see his face because if he reveals his face, then anyone who sees him will fall into eternal sleep, and they all must fall into eternal sleep. Even snow crows, born with a gift from God, someday fall into eternal sleep, and when the boy turns 20, he must pierce his heart with a sacred sword, and let him remember that the prosperity of their kingdom is in his hands. Therefore he must constantly remember this, to which the young man agreed. And the woman claimed that he was the greatest magician in the entire kingdom, and she is confident that he will be able to cast a spell on himself, so that he will not run away in fear from plunging into eternal sleep, and his end will be the greatest gift for the prosperity of the kingdom. A little while later, the guy asks if 15 days have really passed, but he slept well even though he woke up. The young man also understands that something could have happened to Apple, and he is glad that he left Leto to look after her. The guy also goes out onto the balcony and asks if there are still 3 months left. But soon, the romance kingdom will dry up. Well, sometimes he still needs to sleep after all. He has to somehow keep his explosive mana under control. However, if it continues to grow, then even this ring will soon cease to hold it back. So he needs to be careful in the guise of Rose. Then the young man looks at his reflection in the mirror, and he understands that he will plunge into eternal sleep when he turns 20 years old, and only the kingdom of eternal end of life will find each of them. That's exactly what the guy thought, but ever since he met Apple, he doesn't want time to slip away. And he thought that the spell he had cast on himself would be easy to remove, even if he knew how it all began. He still doesn't know how to deal with it, and he also thinks that Apple would have found an answer in his place, and understands that of course not. The young man also thinks that just the thought of her brings peace to his heart, after which he puts it back into his ring and realizes that it is time to return. When the girl gets out of the carriage, reporters immediately take pictures of her, and one of them shouts that there are rumors that the girl spent all 15 days in bed, but now she feels fine. Her second place was awarded to Campanilla, so one of them asks how the girl can comment on this, and whether she will be able to continue her participation in the competition in the Garden of Noble Maidens in the future in this condition. At this time, someone else shouts for them to wait and let her through, after which the main character runs up to their mistress with a smile on her face. She also shouts to the reporters that the lady needs rest and therefore asks them to let her through. She also asks if everything is okay with Lady Rose, to which the girl replies yes. A little while later, they are already heading down the corridor, and Rose confirms that it must be class time now and there is no one there. She also turns to Apple and asks what she did without her, to which the protagonist is not surprised. And she also understands that she is sure the lady will not like it if she finds out that she did attend the ball. But there she even met her future husband, so now he pounced on her and answered that nothing at all had happened to her. The brunette then says that the girl is taller now, and the main character asks what she said. However, Rose merely turns away and claims nothing, then enters the room, and the young lady asks her to wait. Rose takes off her coat and sits at the table, then addresses Apple. But then someone knocks on the door, and the young lady tells them to wait a second. Then someone apologizes, and the young lady tells them to come in. The man then enters the room and wishes her a good day, apologizing for the wait. Apple claims he's just in time and tells the man to come in. Afterwards, she pulls up a chair, and the stranger sets up the camera. Rosa insists they should contact the studio if they want a new profile photo, but the main character refuses to answer, saying no, and that it's private. He also asks the lady if she's ever had a family portrait. Rosa asks what the girl has in mind for the main character, telling her not to persist since it's just one photo, and she bought all the film so the photos won't be published anywhere else. Rosa then asks what kind of family portrait this is since there are only 2 of them and the girl isn't even her sister. However, the main character replies that she knows, and when the lady wins and gets married, then she will take a photo with her real family, that is, the crown prince, to let her think of it as practice with the fake family. In general, she tells them to smile during this time, and when she takes a photo, she says it turned out well. But let the girl open her eyes a little and smile a little more, after which he takes another photo and claims that it turned out great. And he will also take one more picture for the end. The main character then asks if they should be a little closer for a joint photo of the sisters, after which she approaches her mistress. Well, yes, she's just embarrassed, surprised, and then runs away. The main character and the photographer are then in shock. Meanwhile, the brunette walks into the wardrobe, and he realizes that this girl will seize the entire kingdom simply out of curiosity. At this point, the girl asks her mistress for forgiveness and asks her to open the door. The young lady asks for forgiveness several more times, and the brunette realizes that she is going crazy when this girl is around. A little while later, she finally comes out of the dressing room, and the main character, a little surprised, turns to her and also claims that she saw the photographer off and cleaned up the chambers. The girl also asks if she wants a cup of her favorite black tea and also asks her to say at least something and apologizes again. The brunette silently sits down at the table, but at that very moment, someone knocks on the door and the young lady asks who it is. Then Charlotte runs into the room, and then she lunges at Apple. The protagonist, a little surprised, asks what happened and where all the green-haired ladies' maids are, but Apple only asks what she should do, and he says she can't go home like this. The young lady then tells the girl to calm down and spill everything, and asks what happened. Charlotte replies that she's been challenged to a duel on behalf of Nora Muscari. They also need to discuss the details. They even included a flower in the envelope. The main character insists it's a rose and says how romantic it is, as if the girl was asked out on a date. However, the girl's mistress asks why she's so calm, and the more elaborate the invitation, the greater the excitement. The protagonist then turns to Charlotte and asks if she knows who it is. Rose insists there's nothing surprising about it. After all, Nora Muscari is number 17, and her passion is dueling. That's how she earned all her feathers, and the problem is, they don't know the reason she challenged Lady Voltaire to a duel. The green-haired lady cries out that she truly knows nothing and has never acted rashly. The protagonist also asserts that Charlotte is not the type to make enemies. However, the brunette claims that she does not know for sure, and that one cannot judge a book by its cover, after which she asks why Charlotte was not told the whole truth. After all, only then can they help her. The green-haired lady remains silent, and the brunette says she'll guess. She wonders if the man is to blame. Charlotte then asks in shock what she is talking about, and Rose replies that she heard that recently a girl has been going to the library every day to meet someone. And yesterday was the Sapphire Night Ball, an event for which everyone wants to find gentlemen companions. The main character then wonders what Rose is saying, and the brunette claims that if the girl arrived at the ball accompanied by the one upon whom Princess Maniac's gaze fell, then it is quite logical that she sent an invitation to a duel. The protagonist realizes she can't tell her what she saw at the ball, and then claims it's just Rose's assumption. Meanwhile, Charlotte turns to Apple and insists everything is fine. After all, she really did come to the ball accompanied by the one she met in the library, although she doesn't think that this has anything to do with the invitation to the duel. But she must tell them everything so that there are no more misunderstandings between them. The girl also tells the story of how she came to the library and claimed there were so many interesting books there. But when she looked around, she realized she'd lost the others and wondered how she could get out of there. But when she turned the corner, she saw someone. And I wondered if these were men. But if this guy can go there, does that mean he belongs to the royal family? After which the young lady turned to him and asked for forgiveness. She also asked if he could tell her which way the exit was. The young man then pointed to one, and the girl thanked him. A little while later, she was already telling her maids that she needed to go somewhere alone, but she would be back soon, so they shouldn't worry. One of the maids then asked where the mistress had rushed off to, and the other was wondering if the libraries were in that direction. After all, she had been visiting there often lately, and was the mistress really so in love with books? The lady with green hair entered the library at that time, and she was wondering if this guy would also be there today, since he had been gone for several days. After which, she finally saw him and realized he was there after all. The girl also apologized, but the young man insisted it was her again. Charlotte, seeing the book he'd been reading last time, insisted he was spending a lot of time with her. But the young man merely closed the book and asked what she wanted. Charlotte replied that she had something for him, and the young man wondered if she had brought something for him. The girl then replied that he needed something for a potion he wanted, after which the young man, shocked, asked what she was talking about. The young lady then handed him a piece of paper and claimed to have indicated a meeting place. And she'll be waiting for him tomorrow evening. Charlotte now claims she met him in the library and stumbled across him completely by chance when she was lost, but fell in love at first sight. Rose looks at the girl in shock, and the main character asks if it's true and also wonders what will happen next. The green-haired lady claims she was watching him from afar near the library, and the night before the ball she mustered the courage to confess her feelings. Rose asks who this gentleman is, and the main character thinks that at least Charlotte doesn't know anything, since the crown prince himself recognizes the danger of this young man. The lady with green hair claims that this guy said that he is the son of His Majesty the King, and the main character is shocked, wondering if she really knows. Charlotte also claims that his name is Lord Benjamin, and she is afraid to even look at him again, and cannot even greet him properly now. The main character is shocked to realize that she thought that knowing his name would be cheating, but now she doesn't even know what to do. Rose, meanwhile, says everything is clear and believes everything the girl told her is true. Charlotte then bites her nails and insists that of course it is. The brunette claims that the girl is, in fact, a candidate for the succession of the princess, who was caught red-handed in the company of the illegitimate prince, and she fears they face a more serious problem than just a duel. A short while later, the protagonist sighs heavily, and Charlotte asserts she doesn't want to return home because of this situation, after which the brunette claims that today the lady should rest, and tomorrow she can think about this situation again. A short time later, Rose turns to Apple and asks her what she thinks of what Lady Voltaire said. The protagonist replies that she didn't expect Charlotte to speak so bluntly about the man she liked. After which she also sits down in a chair and says what a shame she liked that guy. However, the brunette replies that she doesn't agree with that, and Mistress Charlotte is leading them on too. The young lady then screams in shock, wondering if she really thinks Charlotte is lying to them. The brunette replies that the girls don't have the courage to lie to them, but she admits that she's not telling them something. The girl also wonders if the young lady noticed anything strange in her story. The protagonist then asks if she's talking about anything strange and asserts that she doesn't think so. The brunette claims that Madame Charlotte's defenses are not so easy to break, and she knows that she needs to be constantly on guard if she wants to survive in the palace. Therefore, Rose asks whether such a lady would follow the object of her affections from afar and also run away from her maids and keep everything a secret, and also invite to the ball as a companion someone she does not even know. And what's more, is this gentleman really going to come to the rampart just because some stranger invited him? The young lady then insists it's true, and the brunette insists that if he'd wanted to reject her, he would have done so immediately during the confession, but then she asks why the guy came. The main character then claims that maybe Charlotte begged him, because she saw how the girl thanked him for his visit and sent him away, satisfied that at least he came. The brunette then asks if this means the girl also attended the ball, and after some hesitation, she replies yes. Rose asks how she liked the ball, and the main character realizes that there was a very attractive poppy there, who created a fairy tale just for her, but she can't say. That her future husband gives her butterflies in her stomach and she will feel awkward, so the blonde claims that the evening was very pleasant and elegant and the moon was beautiful. The brunette then says that it is understood, and then turns to her sister and tells her to contact the reception and arrange her school schedule for tomorrow. After all, Benjamin is still a problem for them, but first they need to sort out the duel, and to be honest, it doesn't matter to her whether Lady Charlotte is expelled or not. But for Apple, it is important, and she can't let her worry too much or get in her way. The main character only smiles after this, and then jumps on Rose with a hug. He also thanks her. The brunette only feels embarrassed after this, and the next day they decide to talk about the duel. Rosa insists that in the garden, dueling is another way to earn feathers besides schoolwork. The rules of the game, as well as the competition itself, can be agreed upon by the participants, as well as the number of feathers at stake, but the outcome of the duel will be decided by the judges, and their number must be odd to avoid a draw. The more difficult it is to determine the winner in a difficult competition, the more important the vote of each judge will be, and since the time and place have been determined by the opponent, they should be offered something in which they are strong. The main character claims that she learned this in the Palace of Sasser, and that Princess Muscari won in total 5 duels. Well, the lady with green hair claims the garden only opened a month ago. The brunette insists that 5 real duels is quite a lot. The main character claims that she ranked 12th in the feather count rankings this week, so she has about 8 feathers. The green-haired lady then asks how Apple knows all this. The main character replies that their maids are named after food, and that this girl is mostly inconspicuous, but she has quite the personality. Once, during an argument, she challenged a candidate to a duel. The British woman then asks how she usually chooses her competition. The protagonist replies that it's fencing, hunting, and bowling, and Rose insists that this has nothing to do with the crown princess's personality. The protagonist then asserts that she thinks that's why the girl won all 5 duels. But the brunette says that the competition is chosen by mutual consent, and if each time the duel was beneficial for her, then it is not a coincidence, which means there are 2 options. The first is if both candidates can't reach a unanimous decision and the judges decide the competition, but she doesn't think that's the case. The main character claims that besides the Duchess of Pantheon, this girl always chose the judges on the spot, so they were different every time, and the brunette claims that there is a second option and this girl forced the other candidate to agree to her conditions. After which, she asks what Lady Voltaire thinks and whether she knows what she might have hidden up her sleeve against her. The The green-haired lady, shocked, then claims she doesn't know. However, Rose insists she thinks the princess is a true predator in search of prey, and she always chooses a win-win option. For example, she might know that someone was dating an illegitimate prince while being a candidate for princess. Charlotte then asks what she's talking about, and the brunette insists that if the princess challenges her to a sword duel today, she wouldn't agree. The protagonist then turns to Charlotte with concern, and Rose claims that if the girl really does have such an ace up her sleeve, then she will be at a disadvantage even if she wins, and the outcome will be bad if she comes out on top in the duel. And if the girl loses and tells someone outside the palace walls about what happened, then if she really knows something important about the summer, then they have nothing to do there. That's why now the brunette only says that Madame Voltaire should return home, because even if she is expelled, she has already been to the ball and lasted a whole month there. Apple then turns to her mistress and screams that this is too much, but the brunette insists that this is not another survival game, and it doesn't matter how much time the candidate spends there, because the main thing is victory. However, the lady with green hair immediately jumps up from her seat and screams that no, after which she claims that she cannot allow herself to be expelled now. The brunette then asks if the girl really wants to marry a prince whom she has never met in her life, and asks what about Prince Benjamin. However, the green-haired lady insists she can't give up and can't leave the palace now. She also addresses Lady Arden, and asserts that it doesn't matter what game she's forced to compete in, but if there's any way to minimize the risks, she asks to be told. Rosa then points out that Mrs. Voltaire has 2 feathers and asks if the girl thinks she won't be expelled if she only has 1. The green-haired lady claims that she didn't even think about winning, and she is not her or Lady Leraire, so earning even 1 feather was extremely difficult for her, and she doesn't want to lose it because of some duel. But it's better to lose one than to go home. Rosa then asks the girl if she's already thinking about defeat, and she replies that she always thinks about defeat, because she'll never win. But the brunette asks if such a fierce battle isn't somehow special to her, since there will be no end to the duels, and nothing will stop Princess Menak from challenging the lady to another, and the candidate won't be able to refuse without a single feast. The green-haired lady then becomes very worried, and the brunette claims that she does not want to help her if this means she will have to lend her feathers, but she can offer the girl options. Charlotte argues that even if she wins, this girl might know something about her. Rose replies that she needs to defeat this girl on all fronts, so that her pride is shattered. And the words of those in power always have a greater effect, so if she claims that she doesn't know any Prince Benjamin, then this might work if she wins. Well, the green-haired lady claims she's not good at fencing or other competitions, and that a gay man would never defeat a princess. However, the main character claims the girl is a skilled horsewoman, and the riding lessons took place outdoors, so she watched Charlotte, and since the princess was good at hunting, she would have nothing against riding, and she was also sure that the girl would accept the challenge. Rose argues that horseback riding is a good option, and at least much better than bowling. She also argues that Charlotte should put both her feathers on the line, and the opponent must be forced to go all in as well. A short time later, the protagonist is already heading after her mistress, claiming she hasn't seen Charlotte since. The girl also asks how long she has not left her chambers, and Rose claims that she is sure that Charlotte is simply nervous before the duel, although such hiding will not bring any benefit. Apple then turns to the lady and says she'll go check on Charlotte. Blynn is a little surprised, but the young lady claims she heard the girl barely eats, so she'll make her some soup. She also asks Rose if she will let her in, and also asks her about it, calling the girl a lovely and generous lady. The brunette only gets embarrassed after this and tells the girl to do it quickly and come back immediately. Then the young lady enters the kitchen and declares it's time for her magic, but then she sees someone in the kitchen. This guy immediately approaches the young lady and grabs her hand, and he screams, "What is the girl doing there?" Then he turns around and starts dragging the young lady along, and she wonders what's going on. Apple also asks where he's from, and the young man asks if she's a servant and not a candidate. The girl replies that yes, and as far as he can see, she's just a servant, so she asks him to explain what's going on. The guy replies that she shouldn't know why he's there, and the young lady then asks why he brought her there. The young man asks the girl if she knows Charlotte Voltaire. The main character then wonders if it would hurt Charlotte if she told the truth, but she also can't deny it outright. The young man then asks if the girl is her servant, and the young lady replies that she is not, and that she serves another mistress. The young man then becomes a little angry and claims that they have nothing to discuss. But the young lady then claims that he is Prince Benjamin, and if he wants to convey the message to Lady Voltaire, then she can help. However, the young man then looks at her coldly and asks if the girls know about him too. He then claims that it's probably all his fault, and since the girl knows who he is, he should tell Charlotte the following. He then tosses the girl a box and insists he doesn't need her handouts and that she should take it back. The young lady then tells the guy to wait, and he asks what else is needed. Apple asks His Highness to tell her everything, and maybe it will be something like an audience. However, the guy claims that he has nothing to talk about with her. But the main character then claims that Charlotte can enter into eternal sleep, and the young man, shocked, asks why she would do such a thing. The blonde replies that Princess Menak has arranged a duel with her. Well, she thinks this girl has dirt on Charlotte. The young man then asks what's so special about that, but the main character insists that he went with this girl and attacked her, and if Charlotte is expelled from kindergarten, he will never see her again. However, the guy insists there's nothing between them, and her Naledi asks why he went to the ball with her then. The prince replies that if he'd known where she was taking him, he never would have come. And everything he was there for is in this box in her hands, and since he no longer needs it, he decided to return it to her. Apple then tells him to return it to Charlotte himself. The young man is a little surprised, and the girl claims that she is not even this lady's servant, and asks how he can be sure that she will give it to her, and also what if she accidentally loses something. And what happens if she opens it, or the girl asks if she can look inside. The young man then screams, "No," and she'll be in trouble if she looks inside, after which he screams for the girl to give him the box, and he takes it away, and the main character says that then it's something important. She also states that if the guy wants to return it himself, he should come to the palace gardens in 6 days. After all, Charlotte's duel is at 2 o'clock, and it could be her last day at the palace. The young man then simply turns around and claims it's none of his business, and the main character then returns back to the kitchen and thinks about what he meant when he said that when the girl meets this special one, he should tell her not to try to bribe her anymore. It would be better if this girl became crown princess through the Garden of Noble Maidens, or whatever it's called. The blonde also thinks he wouldn't call the love letter under the dome and wonders if it was really money. Well, the young lady finally realizes that this can't be true, since he is, after all, from the royal family. However, then the main character remembers that they were in the library's botany section when they first met. Well, then the young lady realizes that the soup can wait, and that she needs to tell Rose everything first. Then the young lady drags her mistress to the table, and Rose asks what's so special about it. The main character claims that she thinks she understands everything, and the relationship between Charlotte and Prince Benjamin is not entirely love, because she thinks that the girl gave him some herbs. And the green-haired lollipop wind told her that the guy was reading a book on botany, so maybe the injuries were a pretext to get closer, and also a kind of gift. The brunette then turns to Apple and asks who in their right mind would give herbs, but the young lady asks what if the girl gave him a potion. And the brunette claims that most of the herbs can be found in the palace gardens anyway, but then she suddenly realizes something and claims that these are not herbs at all. Rose also thinks she's the boy's mother, and thanks to Leto, she learned that the boy began studying botany because of her condition. The young man is stuck in the library's botany corner every day, and Charlotte, who was secretly leafing through the same book, and of course also got something that the illegitimate prince could never get, but which would force him to appear at the Sapphire Night Ball. And this medicine, hidden from the light of day, this was the girl's ace in the hole, the one she could use against them both. The main character claims that if these aren't herbs, then they're poisonous plants. The brunette replies that poisonous plants are prohibited for His Majesty's safety reasons, but if used correctly, they can become a necessary medicine. Well, she asks how the blonde came up with all this, after which she replies that she met Prince Benjamin in the kitchen while preparing soup for Charlotte. Rose then asks what the guy was doing there, and the main character claims that he seemed to want to convey something to Charlotte, but he didn't succeed. The brunette then insists that she needs to think things through, but that's her problem, and Apple should better take care of Charlotte Voltaire. The protagonist then smiles, hugs her mistress, and thanks her. A short time later, the protagonist enters the green-haired lady's room and asks if she can come in. Charlotte, all tearful, then asks if it's Apple, and the main character comes up to her and asks why the girl is acting as if she has already lost because she has to give it her all. But she did make a bet. Charlotte then asks what the bet is, and the protagonist does not answer that every time the maids make bets on who will win this or that duel, and she put all her savings on Charlotte. The green-haired lady then asks in shock why the girl did this, and the blonde claims that she believes in her, after which she tells her to try the soup and her soul will feel better. Charlotte then smiles and thanks her, and a week later, the day of the scheduled duel finally arrives. The protagonist realizes that she's heard about Charlotte training diligently every night, and she also hopes that this demonstrates her serious attitude and that at least this girl wins, but in any case, Prince Benjamin will arrive today. However, then the main character is shocked and thinks about what to do because she forgot about it, after which she immediately runs into Rose's room and also claims that she forgot to tell her something. Rose then asks what she's talking about, then says something to get the girl to calm down and talk. Apple claims that the prince found out from her that Charlotte was having a duet that day, so he'll come and see. The brunette is shocked and asks why the girl invited him there. The main character then claims that this could be her last day in the palace, and she shouldn't think so, and hope that Charlotte wins, but who knows how it will all turn out. Rosa then asks if this guy even knows where they are, but then says that can't be true, and even if he had just a drop of common sense, he would never come. But the blonde wonders if his presence would cheer Charlotte up since she really likes him. However, the brunette asks what if this only makes her more nervous, but Apple insists that she told him to return the gift himself and is sure he will give it to her personally. However, Rose understands that this prince is not stupid enough to be there in person, after which she states that she is betting on the fact that he will not come. The girl also thinks what this guy was up to, and if he only needed the herbs, he would have taken them and forgotten about Charlotte, but if he doubted that these were the right herbs, he would have easily gotten rid of them. But the girl wonders if he's really going to take the risk and return them to her personally. After which she also suggests that perhaps it's not so bad that they met. Rose smiles, and the young lady asks what she's talking about. The girl claims that if the illegitimate prince shows up at an event attended only by the candidates, it will cause an extraordinary uproar. The main character also says that this will put Charlotte at a disadvantage, but then she also asks what if he offers her his own option. At this time, the young man is in his office and looks at the page he has scrawled, and also realizes that he has failed again. After which he looks at the box and realizes that it is a dangerous poisonous plant. However, if used correctly, it can become a necessary medicine, after which he thinks why he took it at all. But every time he remembers who she is, he gets furious and wonders how this girl could have managed to so boldly ensnare him and drag him to the ball, and only so she could apologize, and then apologize again for doing it. Then the guy grabs this box and screams, "What does this even mean?" After all, if she wants to seduce him, then she needs to choose decent methods. And the girl, who was born head to toe, never asked him to dance. After which, he wonders if there's really going to be a duel today or something, and also realizes that he has nothing but problems. He is also not sure whether this girl is so stupid or extremely cunning, but she has put too much on him, and the guy understands that he should not have gotten involved in this from the very beginning. Afterwards, he finds himself on the street, but then someone addresses His Highness and says he's finally arrived. It turns out to be the main character, and the guy immediately claims he's not there. The young lady then turns to her mistress and claims that the guy wants them to leave this place, and the young man wonders if she really brought her mistress, but the girl said that she does not serve the Voltaire family. After which he looks into the carriage and wonders who is there, and the main character turns to him and claims that her mistress asked him to tell her that if he does not go with them, then he should return the poisonous herbs. The young man then asks in shock how they found out about this, and the main character claims that they will pass everything on, so she asks him to do it. The young man, again in shock, asks how she found out about the poisonous herbs. She also wonders why he should believe them. The blonde realizes his reaction is exactly as Rose predicted, and their main character wonders if he's already used them. The young man then cries out that he didn't use anything, after which he hands over the box, and the main character then asks him to follow them. After all, if he doesn't hand over these herbs, they'll only bring him more problems. The boy sighs and climbs into the carriage, but when he sees Rose, someone asks who she is. The brunette then says she's pleased to meet Prince Benjamin. The young man stands there, perplexed, but at that very moment, the carriage door closes. The guy is then a little surprised and asks what they are going to do, and a little while later, he is already sitting with his mouth tied. The brunette asks him to forgive their ignorance, but they're trying for his sake. A short time later, they enter the place where the duel is to take place. The main character says that quite a lot of people have gathered there. Rose suggests that her maid hurry, as they need to arrange a rendezvous with Lady Voltaire before the duel begins. The young lady then asks what the mistress will do, and she replies that it will only make the situation worse if she goes with them. The girl then smiles and says that she will wait for them at the races so she shouldn't be late. Then the main character goes into the reception area, and the lady with green hair asks if this is Apple. The main character claims it's an exciting event and asks if it's true. She also claims they came to support her, and a girl with black hair stands next to the young lady. Charlotte then asks who is next to the girl, and Apple just pushes the brunette and claims that she doesn't think they will have enough time after the duel, so she brought him there. The young man then stands in front of the young lady and then hands her the box and tells her to take it back. The green-haired lady realizes that this voice seems very familiar to her, after which she looks at the person's face. And in shock he asks if this is really His Highness. But this cannot be. The guy then gets embarrassed and claims that this whole masquerade was not his idea, but the lady with green hair only laughs after that. And she wonders if that gloomy Prince Benjamin, who's always hiding in the library, is wearing a dress. The girl also tries to stop laughing and asks for forgiveness, but the guy wonders if it's really that funny. He also claims the girl can apologize later, but now he's asking if he can talk to her. Charlotte then asks what he wants to talk about. The young man claims that he doesn't know who she needs, but he will immediately say that the girl can forget about it. And he really did need what was in the box, but he wasn't about to lose his head over something trivial. And it looked like she'd been through a lot too, so this would serve as a lesson for her in the future. And after some time, the crown prince will choose the Princess of Lugena for himself. He is also confident that from this union a child will be born whose right to the throne will exceed his own. He is also confident that by that time the prince will reveal his identity and he will finally be allowed to leave this palace. Charlotte then tries to say something else, but the guy just turns around and claims that he is looking for the cure himself. He also asks her to listen to his advice for the sake of the time they spend together. After which he tells the girl not to linger there, because this place is rotten to the core and that she should run away as soon as she gets the chance. And if she can lose, then let her lose. The main character then screams in shock, asking what he's saying, and whether he even knows how hard this girl worked. But the young man only screams that he already told her to lose, and also wonders why this girl is so noisy. After which he leaves the room and Apple screams in shock that he can't walk around alone. Then she also comes out and tells Charlotte that she is always on her side no matter what anyone says and will only root for her. When the main character leaves the room, tears begin to flow from the eyes of the lady with green hair, and then she sits down on the floor and also claims that even if the guy says such things, she'll still make every effort. Meanwhile, someone addresses the brunette as a sister. And the young lady then realizes that it's Lady Lorraire, after which she asks how she's doing. The blonde then asks if she won't call her Iris. Rose replies that it's funny that only people gathered for a duel between some two candidates, and that Duchess Pantheon is probably to blame for everything. She hasn't been in the garden lately, and the girl is sure that as an opponent she has something to worry about. After all, she needs to get rid of a multitude of candidates quickly. At that moment, the duel is announced, and the blonde turns to Rosa and declares that she will tell only her. The girl also says that word came from Sid, that after today's duel, the Duchess will add a new rule, Once the Sapphire Night Ball ends, the judges will institute new rules to eliminate multiple candidates at once, a deliberate measure to cut costs and re-engage the public. Well, the brunette understands that she needs to keep as many candidates as possible and also delay the duration of the garden for at least a month, and this is what she needs to do. Iris then says that it looks like today's loser will be the scapegoat for the new festival, and Rose states that this is probably true. She also realizes that the only reason they are telling her everything is because they support her plan, and these two know who she really is. And they also understand why she hates the garden so much. At this point, someone announces that Princess Muscari and her horse are going to perform first. At this time, the prince approaches the main character and claims that they said that it was so simple, but you just need to look at this horse because it is a beautiful horse. Rose then thinks she can't believe she's meeting her stepbrother for the first time, and they're both dressed like girls. But maybe it's a good thing he doesn't know anything. The girl then asks why he came back and whether it is because he is stupid. However, the young man then screams at her to just shut up. Rosa then asserts that she thinks that since the boy is an illegitimate son, he speaks and acts like a commoner. But the young man then cries out who this girl is, and if she becomes the crown princess, he'll simply run away, even if it costs him his life. The main character then only tells him to stop drawing attention to himself. And the young man calms down and sighs, after which he looks at the obstacle course and wonders if the one with the shortest lap time wins. Apple claims that this is also, well, there are also points for how well you tamed your horse. The brunette then says that the judges will decide everything, and Lady Voltaire will lose. Meanwhile, the princess continues her horse racing. And then he reaches the finish line. Someone announces that Lady Charlotte Voltaire and her horse will be next. Then the lady with green hair also comes out with her horse, and the main character immediately grabs the prince by the hand and also claims that Charlotte should win because she will be rooting for her. However, the brunette then asks what she is doing and also screams for the girl to cheer for her after she lets him go. Charlotte then easily clears all the obstacles, and one of the women asks if they're too low. Another also asks how the girl manages to clear them so easily. The main character at this time is rooting for Charlotte and claims that she almost won, after which the girl overcomes the last obstacle, and he takes off his hat and breathes heavily. At this point, one of the judges jumps up and down in his seat and declares that it was wonderful. Everyone applauds Charlotte, and they're a little surprised, after which everyone smiles. The brunette rises from her seat. The main character then asks Rose if she is going to return, because if so, she suggests going together, but her mistress claims that she has a headache and needs to go to bed early, and she'll be fine, so let the prince take the girl back home. The main game doesn't insist that a woman shouldn't be alone and would prefer to have a clone. The brunette simply claims that it's only when she needs to look proper. She also asks to tell Lady Charlotte to come to her room tomorrow, and the main character asks if she has anything to say. Rose claims that they will just play chess, after which she leaves, and the prince then claims that he is sure this girl will be fine. At this time, two candidates are standing next to each other, and someone asks the audience for their attention. This man claims they are announcing the judges' results, and Princess Muscari Norha confirms this with 2 out of 3 votes. Charlotte, hearing this, is shocked. Someone turns to her and asks her to put down her feather. The girl, her hands shaking, puts down the feather, and then it is brought to the princess. She just takes the pen in her hands and smirks, and the main character at this time squeezes her uniform, and someone says that this ends the duel. And Duchess Pantheon announces a new rule, so Higai asks everyone not to leave their seats and also to remain silent. After this, the Duchess rises and declares that from now on, the remaining candidates will participate in the voting. The candidates who will have to leave the garden will be determined by voting, and even if the majority votes for them, the girl can stay if she gives up 1 feather. Well, if she doesn't have feathers, she'll have to leave the garden. Sid then claims the first vote will be in 3 days, while the main character then realizes in shock that Charlotte just lost all her feathers in a duel. But she tried so hard not to lose. But then the young lady shakes her head and realizes that she is confident that Rose will come up with a solution. And first, she must take Prince Benjamin to his chambers. The blonde also claims that she knows he came to return the package, but they have to go, after which the girl grabs the young man. and he claims she summoned the keyboard, so he suggests they just walk like that until they get there. However, the young man then asks if they should walk like that together. Sid is at this time next to his horse and claims that there is still a little time left before riding lessons. He also thinks that maybe he should check on Iris, after which the young man heads off somewhere. Well, when he goes down the stairs, he sees the main character, who is just closing the door to the carriage, after which it sets off. Then the blonde approaches the Duke and asks why he is still there. The guy replies that he has already returned, and the young lady states that this is excellent and also says that she would like to ask him something. The young man then asks if she really wants to ask him something, after which a carriage also drives up there. And the guy asks if she wants to come in and also states that he is sure that a full circle around the palace will give them enough time to talk. When the young lady enters the carriage, she states that she wants to talk about today's duel, and the guy says that it is clear. The main character asks who is better in his eyes. The blonde replies that he thinks the girl understands that he was only evaluating their skills. And the young lady claims that maybe it's because she was rooting for Charlotte, but she feels it's wrong. After all, the girl was so beautiful, and she couldn't understand how it all happened. The young man then insisted that Lady Voltaire was beautiful and that she was like a completely different person. The guy also asks if it was Apple who convinced her to ride the horse, and Rose wouldn't do that. Apple claims she did little and it's all on Charlotte's side. So what am I saying then? That the girl wouldn't have changed. If Apple hadn't given her hope, then she would have more easily accepted the same outcome. The main character then asks if he means to say that Charlotte tried so hard and lost everything because of her. She then tells him to be honest and asks if Charlotte was better. The young man then just smiles and remains silent. And the main character then approaches him and claims that the guy said that he would be a fair judge. However, the Duke claims that he has nothing more to say to her regarding his choice, and also wonders if Rose has told her anything about it. The main character then remembers how the brunette talked about what a pathetic bastard this guy is, and how his role should be a flower. Now the young man claims that Chancellor loves Rosa very much, and that the lady she serves will not harm her. The protagonist then thinks she now understands what Rosa meant. Well, now she just asks the guy why this is so and whether Rose can stay, but Charlotte can't. The young man claims that their job is to constantly judge and choose the next queen, the girl who will remain by the crown prince's side even after he takes the throne. And the garden does not harm anyone, and there will be only one winner, and even if they drink, no harm will come to them. The young man also tucks a lock of the girl's hair and states that the garden is a festival and that everyone must return home after the festival is over. The guy also tells her to just think of it as people who go home early. The main character cries out that she knows this though, but at that very moment, the door opens, and the young man, with a smile on his face, asserts that he sincerely hopes that the girl will remember this as a great holiday. The main character then thinks what she expected from Lord Sid, since he was kind and friendly from the very beginning, but never said that he was on Rose's side. And since he was Rose's half-brother who knew what the girl had gone through, and the main character must have assumed that he knew everything, she had expected a lot and was also very disappointed. The girl also enters the room and wonders if Rose is already asleep. She also hopes the girl isn't sick and that she should just check on her. But then the brunette turns to Apple, and the protagonist flinches, asking if she wasn't asleep. Rose replies that she simply couldn't sleep but will soon. Their protagonist asks if she's okay and if she's in pain. Rose replies that she's fine and that she's fine. She then turns to Apple and asks if she can open the bottom drawer. The main character does so, and the brunette asks if she can get 2 pills from the blue bottle. Apple realizes there are 2 bottles, but it's so dark she can barely see. She then takes one out and asks if it's her. However, it turns out to be a red bottle. The brunette turns to Apple and tells her to stay in her room until she calls her and to only come out when she wants to eat. Apple then wonders if Rose really wants her to stay in the maid of honor's bedroom, after which she agrees and also tells the girl to call if she needs anything. A short time later, the main character wakes up to hear moans and wonders what the noise is. But then, the girl immediately gets up from her bed and asks if it's Rose. The young lady immediately runs up to the lady and in shock asks if her legs are okay. The brunette only asks who Rose is. The blonde then wonders what the girl is talking about and whether she's still asleep. Rose asks if she's the maid of honor, and the girl replies that yes, she is her maid of honor. But the brunette only tells the young lady to get out, and also forgets that she saw her face and leaves immediately. The young lady then asks if she's sick and whether she should call a doctor. Apple also asks what the girl will do if she leaves her. However, Rose pushes the main character away and screams at her to get out, and also to leave her and not come near. The protagonist then turns to the brunette, a little surprised, but she insists that everything will pass on its own. Apple then asks what happened and whether it's because of Charlotte. Rose simply asserts that she knows everything and that she can't change the course of nature. And it's also impossible to bring back those who are no longer alive, and fate cannot be changed. The protagonist is then a little surprised and says she doesn't know what she's so blunt about. But the brunette merely wraps herself in a blanket and tells the girl not to look at her or her face. The main character then simply hugs the girl. He also agrees and claims he won't look at her if she doesn't want to. Apple also thinks her mistress is so beautiful and doesn't understand why the girl won't let her look at her face. Apple also understands that everyone will love her, including the crown prince, as will her family, even she loves her. After which, the young lady declares that she will wait until Rose reveals him to her. However, the girl only tells the young lady to leave, as she too will fall into eternal sleep. However, the main character says that everything is fine and she will live. A few days after the duel, the green-haired lady begs one of the girls to help her just once. She also claims she needs a feather and wants to at least survive this vote. Then she also turns to the other lady and asks her to fight her just once, because she will do anything. However, the lady then apologizes but claims that she knows she is in a difficult situation, but she also needs all the feathers she can get. But she still insists she can't help her, only because Charlotte looks pathetic, so she asks someone else to help her. The green-haired lady insists she's not asking her to lose on purpose, and will leave if she loses. He also claims that he will do whatever the lady asks and just let her have a duel with her, even a simple game will do. However, the lady asks why the girl is pestering her and why she is so troublesome alone, after which she snatches her dress. The other girls also say that you just have to look at the young lady. And yet she's doing it again, and one of the ladies claims that she would have simply left after losing that duel. Another lady asks how she can even show her face there. Another girl claims that she knows what a pathetic sight this is, and everyone knows that the Duchess doesn't love her, and even if the girl survives this vote, either she will soon be gone, or the girl does not even have a pen to send a letter of challenge, so she must ask others. The red-haired lady asks the girl if she's really going to do anything. The green-haired lady insists that she is, and she'll do anything just to get the girl to fight her. After which her interlocutor only smirks and asks if the girl can then kiss her feet. Charlotte is a little surprised, and the girl simply asks if the Count's proud daughter can do such a thing. However, at that very moment, the protagonist confronts the woman and asserts that she cannot do such a thing to the girl, as they are equal candidates. The red-haired lady asks in shock if the girl dares to criticize her, and the blonde screams, "Who cares that she is a maid of honor? Because there are things that a girl should not do as a person." Rose, meanwhile, turns to Apple and tells her to stop. The girl then approaches Lady Lindsay, bows, and apologizes for not training her lady-in-waiting properly. She also asks to forgive her this time for her sake, and the woman then states that the girl should train her servants better, after which the brunette thanks her for her generosity and turns to Apple and tells her to go with her.